I'm on, bro.
Better medicine.
I don't know. Peace, family. Welcome to the Blue Black Perspective on KWZ Radio. We just having fun in the Discord. So if you want to check out, if you want to
Not really.
talk. Okay, well, we were, Fun ended when this brother showed up. Now I'm just messing. But we having fun. We got to read The Wretched of the Earth. You're on the bit of medicine.
The ratchet of the earth, the wretched.
Same difference, right? But the ratchet of the earth, no. But yeah, we're reading The Wretched of the Earth, and like I said, you're on the pro-black perspective on KWZ Radio. We're doing this for Black August. It's actually a lot, but make sure you check out the other podcasts on the network, including the Revolutionary Matron, the KWZ, Bit of Medicine podcast, and of course the Harsh Reality podcast. So let's just get right into it, while you're still here, right? This is page 36, and it goes. And by the way, if you want this PDF, just come onto the Discord. Sign on to the Discord. Look at the free books, and you got it. All right. So all right, let's go. When every 3 months we learn that the 6th or 7th U.S. fleet is heading towards some coast or other, when Khrushchev threatens to come to Castro's aid with the help of missiles, when Kennedy envisages drastic solutions for Laos, the colonized or newly independent people get the impression that they are being forced, whether they like it or not, into a frantic march. In fact, they are already marching. Let us take, for example, the case of governments of recently liberated countries. The men in power spend 2/3 of their time keeping watch over their borders, averting any threat of danger, and the other third working for the country. At the same time, they are looking for support. Governed by the same dialectic, the national opposition gives parliamentary channels the cold shoulder. It seeks allies who agree to support them in their ruthless endeavor at sedition. The atmosphere of violence, after having penetrated the colonial phase, continues to dominate national politics. As we have said, the third world is not excluded. On the contrary, is at the very center of the convulsion. This is why, in their speeches, the statesmen of underdeveloped countries maintain indefinitely a tone of aggressiveness and exasperation which normally should have disappeared. Now, just to clarify for people not paying attention, I mean, because we just jumped into it on page 36. What Fanon is talking about right here is how after you decolonize, or after you get rid of the colonizers, right? And this is something that really we have to really stress, that the economic system of the colony remains, and the needs of the colony remains, The reality is that, unfortunately, and this is something that I think that we're coming to terms with, I'm coming to terms with myself, the reality is that there is an economic system known as colonialism, right? And we're being fooled into thinking that the economic system is known as capitalism, and that its counterbalance is socialism, when the two of them are red herrings for this colonial system. Okay? So when you're critiquing capitalism but promoting socialism, you're actually promoting colonialism in its place. And what you're finding is that by saying, hey, you know what, we're going to be socialists, but you keep the same colonial economy, because remember, it's all about economy. When you keep the same economy in place, you have to keep the same domination in place, because what happens in this colony is that it's built on domination. It's kind of like, let's say there's an economy called a plantation economy, right? Plantation economy, as you know, is associated with slavery, right? The plantation economy, if you just replace the white enslavers, right? If it's the same economy that you're keeping, right? That is cash crops and so on and so forth. If you keep that same economy of sending cash crops abroad in exchange for money or whatever, right? If you replace the white overseers and the white masters with black overseers and black masters, right? They still have to subordinate the enslaved Africans or the enslaved people. Why? Because that economy, that economic structure of reaping huge fields, depending on human labor for it, cannot be run any other way. And the most economically efficient way to do that system is to dominate and subjugate the people that's there, right? That is what we see in colonial economies. That's what we see in neo-colonial economies, and that's why when we're critiquing our our ancestors or our people or whatever, when we're critiquing these people, we have to realize that the issue comes in us not really developing an alternate economic system, but being fooled to think that socialism is that alternate economic system, when in fact socialism can't be, because it also depends on the extraction of rare earth and rare materials, in order to do industrialization, which makes a lot of sense. I was just reading about Rihanna. Rihanna uses mica, which is like a mineral in India, Riri, my bad. Riri uses a mineral in India. The same way, though, like how I continually stress to everybody how how coltan is in the Congo and it's a rare earth material. Both of them use child labor, because children happen to be better at fitting into small spaces and small nooks and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, in these countries, the children...
It's cheaper. There's not doing all that. It's just cheaper.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But even that, you say cheaper, right? That's the main crux of it. Because, we were having this discussion on Twitter just now, actually. And there's, by the way, if anybody doesn't follow my Twitter, it's not to say. But the issue with... Oh, yeah, so the concern that was brought up was, how can we continue our culture and be industrial and so on and so forth, right? And the reality is that, one of the solutions you'd say for children digging up whatever is that they're not paid well. They're not paid good wages, in a sense, right? But the reality is that we don't have a cultural legacy of wage labor. You see what I'm saying? So the reality being that you're not really going to be deriving from your culture. Your culture is not going to be a resource for discussions on what to do to solve this problem of needing minerals and how to compensate people for it. Because the reality is that you never had. I mean, not to say you never had, but most of the economies of the world were not wage economies. The wage economies are what the capitalists introduced. And the socialists intend to continue. But that is exactly at the issue. The reality being that what kind of wages are there for you to, like, who would reasonably be paid well wages to go down into a dangerous mine? As a child. And I mean, obviously, and then it becomes a question of, well, it would be better to impose some sort of safety measures and so on and so forth for mining. And that we actually do have a historical record of, but we don't explore that. And so obviously that's one of the things that I would like to explore myself personally. Because I do remember that, I think it's in Swaziland. Miner. No, I'm too old.
You could be a minor. You could mine.
No, minor like MINOR.
You could be a minor for cryptocurrency.
No, that's MINER. All right. Never mind. Let's play on words. All right, we get it. But yeah, cryptocurrency mining. I get you.
Like a minor as in
Bro, I spelled it out, man. Nah, I'm done. All right. But it's also kind of sad because a minor, they are children sometimes. So it's just like, shoot. It's like a triple entendre. All right. Anyway, Paul, I thought that was a good diversion, just so people understand that, even though Fanon is legitimate in the critique of these neo-colonialist regimes, the reality is that they kept the same economic system. And when you keep the same economic system, if you do not uphold the same rules, right, your economy is going to collapse. And when your economy collapses, then more people suffer than otherwise.
I mean, if they keep the same system, aren't they already abiding by the rules?
Well, that's what I'm saying, and that's the critique. The critique is that you're abiding by the same rules as the colonizer, but if you inherit, it's like if you inherit like the reality being that economic systems are understudied by most of us, and so like we tend to critique people for their economic system, for upholding their economic systems, when the reality is that that's like you do what you know. The herdsman is going to have their animals graze on arable land, and when the arable land is decreased because of global warming in a sense, right? They're going to still have they're going to find new lands for their animals to graze. Encroaching on residential areas. You said what?
Okay. Our commercial property.
And other commercial property, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like what I do is I move my animals to where they can eat, so that I can eat my animals, They don't just say, oh, well, where I used to graze my animal is gone because of, this industrial economy. So now it's time for me to pack up and, no, it's you do what you know. Like you've been doing this for, like your father's been telling you about it. How his father's been telling you. Yeah, for generations. But that's what it is. The colonial system, you grow up in a little colony, you can't, and the thing is, the population that these these herders can support is minimal compared to the population that a colonial system can support, but the colonial system supports that population because it can import food from abroad, and it's a part of a global economy that's moving different food products all over. I think one of the most interesting videos, because I don't usually watch Wode Maya, but I decided to watch this video because one of the brothers in Discord suggested I watch this one, and for different reasons. I can tell you who it was, and then you'll understand why he said it. But I watched it, and it wasn't what he thought it was, I guess. But Gaza, right? don't recommend anything Gaza does.
You gave me enough information. I don't know what it's about.
Get enough information. Wode Maya, did the whatever. Gaza's another case. Anyway, but anyway, so I watched this video, and this person's talking about their life in Namibia, I guess, and it's like they're hunting, like they're herdsmen, right? And they compete with each other. There are different groups compete with each other to go to a good grazing land before the other does, so that their animals can eat. And not just that, the way how they eat, like if you could look at Wode Maya's face and his host's face, his host happens to speak English, and he's feeding Wode Maya a plate of food. And it's like the most boring meal you've ever, it's one of the most boring meals you've ever seen in your life. It's like a piece of, I want to say goat. I can't remember exactly, but like a piece of goat boiled in water. That's it. And then some other substance, not even, no seasoning. And so this guy's looking at Wode Maya with a smile on his face like, yo, come on, taste this. And Wode Maya takes a bite, and he's trying not to spit it out. Like you could look, but the other guy's looking at him like, you never taste something like this, have you? And it's like, bruh. And Wode Maya's like, you guys eat this every day? And he's like, yeah, every day. And it's like, shh. Like that is an economy. That's an economic system that cannot support people. And modern people can perhaps, say, okay, I'll give up on everything, even seasoning, in order to so on and so forth. But then look at the statement of seasoning. If you want seasoning on your food,
No black person ever.
well, these people were black, These people were black, though. You know what I'm saying? All right, but like,
Once you get seasoned, bro, you can't go back. They can never
but
happen.
here's the thing: seasoning is an imported good, for the most part, to a large degree. I mean, look, we have salt in Africa. No, we have salt in Africa, but I'm talking about like. I mean, yeah, we have other seasoning, of course, but I'm saying that if you wanted to have like what I mean by seasoning is an imported thing is to say that the variety of seasoning that we have, at least let's say here in America, right? But like I mean, even in Africa, but the point being that you import the variety that you have. Now, obviously, you can have local seasoning. I'm not saying you can't have local seasoning. You have local plants, but what I'm talking about is the variety.
Okay, let's say if you want American cheese and Legos, you got to import it.
Yeah, or like curry or whatever. Like I don't know where curry's from, but
Okay.
I'm thinking it's from India. You know what I mean?
India.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. I'm not too sure, but
They got like ice trays throughout.
exactly. But that's the point. The economic system. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, exactly. The point is that the economic system that supports this sort of trading is not the hunter-gatherer or the herder economy, the nomadic economy. It might be the agriculturalist economy if you advance it to the point of trading with other nations. But but then of course it's the colonial economy, which really opens up to the point where you can have food from China while you're in Kansas or something. You know what I mean?
But what about the concept of excess sustainability?
What is
I
that?
think a lot of times we have to recognize a lot of these colonies, while they were, successful in your trading and having these resources, there was a point of having excess or just continuously attaining more resources to the point of where it's almost wasteful. If that makes sense. Because depending on maybe it's more the philosophical type of approach. But
you're saying that are you saying the colonists have excess goods?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Fanon was talking about that, and how well basically you would. Yeah, it was yes. I'll just try to say no, but he was talking about how realistically, the consume, like basically at one point the colonial system would just subjugate you in order to improve its markets in Europe, so that now Europe has the salt, the coffee, the this, the that, and so forth.
Call that
But
today insider trading. Continue.
You said it what?
Call that today insider trading.
Possibly. Wait, hold on a second. It says message deleted by the Google moderator team. That's mad strange. Bit of Medicine wrote something and then it was deleted apparently by Google. Isn't that crazy?
Oh Lord, let me get off this.
Right? Wait, what? Anyway, let me look at these comments though. No. Oh yeah, but you were saying about the. I know, right? I got comments.
It must be automated. It gotta be like some AI.
Arthazord, Teal, Zoo. Probably artificial intelligence. I don't know. No, I'm joking. I know this brother. He's not, I shouldn't say that. he got real intelligence. Nah, that's all real. You said AI. All right. Hey, let's see. Arthazord says, I've been realizing that they have set up systems that we are now put up on to perpetuate. Exactly. They can disappear into the background as we black Africans now promote their colonialist economic policies. Black Americans, black Jamaicans are some of the best evangelists of a neo-colonial economic system. The Western relationship to nature is insanity. They externalize costs. This is beginning with a lie from which they will never recover. Exploitation is the natural result. Yeah, so I was going to say about that. You said facts?
Facts.
Yeah, exactly. So the artificial intelligence is getting good now, right? Right? They just sounded just like us. Exactly. Shit, it sounded better than me. Shit. Let him write my book. You know what I'm saying? Google, book written by Google. All right. So Kofi wrote good post on Twitter, by the way. Authors are the Kofi. I don't know which Kofi, but yeah, exactly.
Kofi number 1 or Kofi number 47.
Exactly. Yo, I'm on live, right? All right. Authors are there. I was at the says support reproduction. We are constantly reproducing. We are reproducing economic systems, cultural systems, spiritual systems. Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, yeah, we did not dismantle the colonial system. We did not dismantle the slavery system, and a part of me is understanding that we just have to build our own economic system, but not with
the main goal was just gaining that sense of independence. I think that was the main goal anyway, just gaining that, and then, but there wasn't really any. I would say it wasn't that much effort or forethought into after getting independence.
Exactly. Well, because that's another thing too. It's like even after you, because if you fight for independence, the reality is this: you fight for independence, right? Let's say I have some good economic ideas. Let's say you have some good economic ideas, and let's say another individual has some bad economic ideas, right? We fight for independence, and then you die and I die. You know what I mean? That other person with the bad economic ideas, you know what I mean? Like you don't know who survives to the end anyway.
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying?
I think we gotta remember this ego. Like some people just, well, how come you got yours in, or why are you doing this when I think we should go this way? And those arguments, and then you have coups and all that.
So I talked about that yesterday about how Kenyatta wins, but there was another person like Thomas Mboya or something like that who was a potential leader, but he was Luo, and Kenyatta was, I guess, Gikuyu, and yeah, the Luo guy is killed. Just random death. So, that's what happens. Bitter Medicine Podcast writes down peace, family. Then his next message is deleted by the Google moderator team. So they ain't even playing. They just like, you know what? F it. We'll do it live. You know what I mean? We'll censor. We'll do it live. What did the brothers say, though? That's what I want to know. All right. So and then Altazor says the questions are: where are the forums to develop the economic systems we want to adopt, and how do we program the next generation with this newly developed economic system? Right now, there's another message held for review. He says, we didn't dismantle shit. They freed us. They gave us independence. We are totally dependent on them for our basic understanding for our basic understandings to sustenance. Yeah. So
maybe it's a profanity.
No. Well, this one. Oh, why they? Yeah, they made it so I had to review this. I don't know why. There's no profanity. Well, there's no profanity. Oh, I guess shit. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe it's like the AI can.
But my thing is, why is Bitter Medicine comment deleted? That's what I want to know. All right. Anyway, so let's keep going. I wonder if anybody could even hear me. I bet I'm just sounding like. You know what I'm saying? What for the sound? Are they playing over some Dr. King? I had a dream. They're like, yeah, I feel you, man. You got that dream, man. Dream on, bro. Wait, what? Yo, why you gotta mock my mans? All right, let me stop. All right, let me. I'm live. I can't remember. I'm live. All right. So Castro with the aid of missiles, blah, blah, blah. The men in power spend 2/3 of their time. So they keep watch of their borders. They have to watch their borders. Because the reality is this. After you're independent, you do have to watch your borders. You said what?
You get a ring alarm.
You get a ring? Yeah, but look, man. There's actually a video of this newly elected president in Latin America. They had to shoot down a drone. That was right, like I think it shot somebody in his like he's doing a speech, and I guess somebody next to him is shot, and then but as they explode, actually let me see if I can show you guys the video so that because I can't understand what it says. I put it on my Twitter.
You're supposed to. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of more of an American view. You have like systems in place that monitor the skies. Any type of.
Yeah, they got the shit before they got him. They got the shit before they got him, but this is like.
I'll say before he even got near. That's what I'm saying.
Well, all right, I'm gonna show you the video. I'm gonna play the video for everybody. Hold on a second, guys. I know we're reading this book, but let's see. So this is YouTube. I'm gonna share it on. I'm gonna try to share. Change window to. This, I guess. All right, you can see it, right? People at home, you can see it.
And your DMs.
You see my DMs? Oh shit, yeah. Oh shit. Anyway, wait, hold on a second. Let me check. Double check. I wonder if people at home saw my DMs. All right, hey, look. All right, look here. Well, it says the translation is not any good. 3 years after the frustrated attempt to end the revolution, we continue to overcome stateless, blah, blah. But look at this video. It's just the first 20 seconds. Boom. They explode the ship. They looked up. This guy was shot. You saw that? Now they cover him up. But this is a New York president. Look. They explode the drone. They look up. This guy was shot. So they was doing was that. So he's the president of Venezuela, I guess, right? He's elected. This was, I guess, 3 years ago, right? Nicolas Maduro, and they tried to kill him right while he was working, right while he was doing his speech. You said what?
Hugo Chavez not coming through that door.
You see what I'm saying? So this dude got something witty to say to everything, even when it's not witty. You get shot. but like that's the thing though. It's like you gotta be watching the border. Critiquing somebody for watching the border, trying to avert any threat of danger. You're not understanding that a part of the system is the domination.
I mean, that should be like a normal thing in any.
It should be, but they see what he's saying is that it makes them it makes the politician paranoid. It makes the politician so on and so forth. And it gotta be. You gotta be.
I can't think of any elected official of any nation that isn't somewhat paranoid.
All the time. Yeah, like before Obama went into a school cafeteria or a school.
First term.
Yeah, but like any term, before even to this day, he has Secret Service and all that kind of stuff. You're supposed to be. And if you don't do that, you end up like what happened with the Haitian president, which is you get killed. He had people, but you that's what it is. You have to be. So he's like, so this critique of, because Fanon is going to critique people, but it's like, I want to just clarify why these criticisms are not always going to be the most valid. So the men in power spend 2/3 of their time keeping watch over their borders, averting any threat of danger, and the other thing, working for the country. At the same time, they are looking for support. Governed by the same dialectic, the national opposition gives parliamentary channels the cold shoulder. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. It seeks allies who agree to support them in their ruthless endeavor at sedition. The atmosphere of violence, after having penetrated the colonial phase, continues to dominate national politics. As we have said, the third world is not excluded. On the contrary, it is the very center of the convulsion. This is why, at their speeches, the statesmen of underdeveloped countries maintain indefinitely a tone of aggressiveness and exasperation which normally should have disappeared. So it's not going to disappear, right? The often reported impoliteness of the new leaders is understandable. What is less noticeable is the extreme courtesy these same leaders show toward their brothers and comrades. This impolite behavior is first and foremost directed against the others, against the former colonialists who come to observe and investigate. The ex-colonized too often get the impression that the findings of these investigations are a foregone conclusion. The journalist is on assignment to justify them. The photos that illustrate the article provide proof that he knows what he is talking about and was actually there. The investigation sets out to prove that everything went wrong as soon as we left. The journalist often, he's talking about the journalist comes in to say, oh, everything went bad, right? The journalist often complains they are badly treated, are forced to work under poor conditions, and come up against a wall of indifference or hostility. And this is quite normal. So again, like if you're a journalist sent from the colonial country, like basically like Britain would come and investigate Kenya and they'd be given the cold shoulder because everybody knows. But like, yeah.
This is, why are people, that's like, I don't know, this is like basic. Like, if you treat me bad for years, I'm like, hey, yo, leave me alone. Why you treat me like this, bro?
Exactly. Like we don't want you. But see, what happens is that the journalist comes in, and this is why I said, I told you guys about this with Maurice Bishop. The journalists from America came in to investigate the Canadian Revolution, and they were like, we hear that you're building a military base. And he's like, and Maurice Bishop was like, no, we're not building a military base. No! That's what I'm saying. Look, he's like, no, we're not building we're building an airport. And we have we're building an airport and a hospital, and we even have American medical students here, American and German and all that kind of medical students. So then what Reagan hears this, because see, these journalists are working for the state, okay? They're making it seem like they're independent government, but this is a journalist from ABC, the same network that gives you Blackish, by the way, right? But the journalists.
That's random.
I know, I'm just like Blackish. Like, damn well ABC got 1 million. I'm blackish. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, but like no, but the thing is this though, like American Broadcasting Company, you know what I'm talking about, right? What they do is you said what? Well, now I guess, right? But what they do is they go back to Reagan. Reagan says, "Oh, Grenada is holding American students hostage, and because of that, they're going to fly in and they're going to use the same damn airstrip that Maurice Bishop was building that he showed off to them to land their planes to, go over there and kill him and his family." You understand? But it's like you open the door to these journalists and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm kind, I'm nice, I'm open, we're transparent. And they say, oh, you are not building a military base? Good. That means we can send even less troops. And that's what happened. You have to give these people the cold shoulder because the whole of them are the opposition. And if you don't understand that, then, like this guy Maduro, he survived that assassination attempt. One of his mans was shot. Castro survived because you got to understand who the opponent is, who the opposition is. Because when you don't understand that, then sure, you understand.
The only time you can actually, let your guard down is once you defeated your enemy and they have no threat to you any longer. If anything.
You said what? The only time
you can let your guard down is when your enemy is no longer a threat. Like if you defeated them fully.
Yeah, exactly. If you didn't defeat your enemy, then don't let your guard down because they're coming back. Bit of Medicine says, they messing with me, and then he says cupcake DMs. I don't think that was a cupcake DM, but.
Okay, I didn't read it. Who are you talking to?
You know what I'm saying? I was not cupcaking, but anyway. First off, the DM was to a brother, so y'all need to pause. But anyway, y'all need to just pause. Anyway, look. So Althazor says the whole of them and part of ourselves are the opposition. The whole of them and part of ourselves are the opposition. Yeah. The whole of them and part of ourselves are the opposition. Can't let your guard down. And that's the thing that you'll find that when you get into power, you said what?
But you can leave your DMs open.
Oh yeah, well I mean, look, man, I didn't know I was gonna show y'all my Twitter, man. Shit. Like I just remembered something. Anyway, but what was it? The nationalist leaders know the international opinion is forged solely by the Western. The nationalist leaders know that the international opinion is forged solely by the Western press. When a Western journalist interviews us, however, it is seldom done to render a service. In the war in Algeria, for example, the most liberal-minded French reporter makes constant use of ambiguous epithets to portray our struggle. When we reproach them for it, they reply in all sincerity they are being objective. For the colonized subject, objectivity is always directed against him. Understandable, too, in the new tone of voice which dominated international policy at the United Nations General Assembly in September 1960, the representatives of the colonial countries were aggressive and violent in the extreme, but their population found nothing exaggerated. The radicalism of the African spokesperson brought the abscess to a head and shone the spotlight on the unacceptable nature of the veto, on the collusion between the major powers, and above all, on the insignificant role allotted to the Third World. Diplomacy, as initiated by the newly independent peoples, is no longer a matter of nuances, innuendos, and hypnotic passes. Their spokesmen have been assigned by their population to defend both the unity of the nation, the welfare of the masses, as well as the right to freedom and self-sufficiency. Yeah. So yeah, the diplomacy. Yeah, the diplomacy is better after we're independent. After we're independent, we decide, look, we have to be about our own people. And like he was saying, the population of the West they want to subjugate, like the populations of the West, the populations of France, the populations of Britain, populations of America want to subjugate the rest of the world. They want to subjugate China. They want to subjugate India. They want to subjugate Ghana and Nigeria and Togo. They want to subjugate these countries. We are. Hey, get out of the Caribbean, man. All right, no. I got the Caribbean, man. I'm joking. Yeah. I was trying to name some guy. I was like, Nigeria got it. Yeah, but yeah, Jamaica too. Yeah, why not? Jamaica's Jamaica. Yeah, no, but I'm not saying nothing bad, man. What's wrong with you? Got me all self-conscious. All right, it is therefore a diplomacy in motion and rage, which contrasts strangely with the petrified, motionless world of colonization. It is therefore a diplomacy in motion and rage, which contrasts strangely with the petrified, motionless world of colonization. Okay. And when Mr. Khrushchev brandishes his shoe at the United Nations and hammers the table with it, no colonized individual nor representative of the undeveloped countries laughs. For what Mr. Khrushchev is showing the decolonized countries who are watching is that he, the missile-wielding Muzik, is treating these wretched capitalists the way they deserve. Likewise, Castro attending the UN in military uniform does not scandalize the underdeveloped countries. What Castro is demonstrating is how aware he is of the continuing regime of violence. What is surprising is that he did not... The struggle, you said? Yeah. Yeah, what is surprising is that he did not enter the UN with his submachine gun. But perhaps they wouldn't have allowed that. Surprising. Yeah, right? He's like, what are you talking about? With all submachine gun. Yeah, okay. He got his Uzis out. Yeah, all right. That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to walk in the UN building.
And then the last paragraph, the paragraph before, he was talking about how the Western ones aren't objective and all that, bro. You just come on. Man.
Yeah, right?
You want to know one, huh?
Right, exactly. The revolts, the acts of desperation, the factions armed with machetes or axes find their national identity in the unrelenting struggle that pits capitalism against socialism. So again, I don't see capitalism and socialism as the real... they're both industrial powers, right? Cuba and Russia were both still industrial powers that relied on foreign resources. Maybe Cuba... Now, what happened with Cuba was that America blockaded them so effectively that you don't see them.
They stay driving Impalas to this day.
They stay what?
They stay driving like 64 Impalas and old school whips.
Yeah, like they don't have no internet, they don't have no whatever. Like, they straight up... Like, somebody said when they went to Cuba... You said what?
May not be consistent internet, but they got internet.
No, he said when they went to Cuba, it was like they went to 1950s or something, you know? Like
architecture, the cars alone, all that.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So, but that's what you expect, you know? But like Russia definitely did get its mineral resources from, Africa and other places. But that's what you'd expect. And the question only becomes, well, how do we do that in an ethical way consistent with our being and our well-being, because if you can't do that, then you might run into problems.
Well, man, we can also the Soviet Union, once they broke up, all those stands in Eastern European countries, to this day they're still just dusty. I mean, they were socialist communists as well. They're counterparts to capitalism, so to speak. So the struggle that he's talking about, I don't know if he's... But then again, at that time, I'm guessing it was still early to really see those after effects. That makes sense.
Oh, for him? Yeah, probably. But, no, I think the Cold War was still raging at this time.
I'll say like that, because the idea was, instead of capitalism, we can have this and it's doing better, but maybe the implementation wasn't as effective.
Yeah, they had what they was called Potemkin villages, where they were fronting, and the thing is that's the thing that happened with China. China was kind of fronting when it was communist. Like the misfortune is that like how to get that wealth or to get that the reality is this, that every country is fronting. You have to, like, all these Western countries rely on an underclass. And so it only behooves us as African people to...
that's capitalism, though.
Exactly. The socialists rely on some underclass, too. The only issue is how can we as African people not have an underclass too far gone? Because it's like, we're in America and, we could live pretty well. But, like, if you're in the middle of the hood... Probably not, to a large extent. There's like extreme murder. You know what I mean? Like yeah, it's extreme murder. Drug abuse, people like put into like sardine cans to live, pretty much. Like small apartments. Yeah. You said what? Pee in the hallways. What do you say?
I said New York. This sounds more like New York than
Oh, it's not just. It's not. I think the hood's like pretty. Like I think that's how it is in Chicago, right? Oh no, they don't have. Oh, maybe they living in good houses in Chicago, and they just shooting each other anyway.
No, they had a hilarious. Anyway, they had like those big projects as well. Like famous ones like Robert Taylor homes and everything. I think they've now broken them down and everything.
Okay.
But, they have like different houses instead of like those big ones. You've seen Good Times, right?
Good Times. That's the one with yeah. Good Times. Yeah.
Yes, that was in Chicago. That like the building they were in. That was like representation of the projects they had too.
Oh, so they don't have the projects like that anymore. Wait, so they don't have the projects down where you at?
Those old big ones they destroyed. I mean, they have projects everywhere, but I'm saying like those big buildings like you're talking about, where they packed everyone in that big building. Not like that.
Well, what's interesting is that the word ghetto used to refer to like how they hoarded the Jews in certain areas.
Really?
Yeah. So those were the ghettos. Like in Europe, that's what they called it. Like the living spaces, like the lower living accommodations in a sense. And so yeah, like you'd expect that. You're gonna see that all over the world. Maybe not high rises. Because New York, they build high rises, I guess, but right, but yeah, like those kind of areas. I think inside of Africa, they call them shanty towns. Those shanty towns, you know, that's what you like. You have extra people, basically.
Yeah,
you have extra
there are
people.
Shanty towns are like a project in, I don't know, the Bronx. It's not the same at all.
Oh no, yeah. I would rather be in the shanty town, right? Right? That's what we talking. I'm joking. I was just messing. He was like, "Wait, Shantytown, what?" Hold on a second. Author source says, "Who wants to be born in the whole of the? Oh yeah, who wants to be born into perpetual war? That is the benefit of spiritual development. It teaches us to live in, endure, and impose systems which will never work to us. Always be antagonistic. It's funny because." They, Westerners, will have a personal philosophy of peace and cooperation, but the reality of their existence, their comfort and luxury is based on subjugation of an other. Can industrialization be based on other than wage labor, exploitation, and neocolonialist principles? Our great minds need to debate and work on this. Yeah, exactly. Every country is fronting because they are in the same race. How can we get out of the race? Okay. Yeah. So can industrialization, without wage labor, exploitation and neocolonialist principles, and that's really what it comes to. Like how, like again, like I said, how do you get the coltan from the earth? Because if you see how these kids get coltan from the earth, it's kind of like, yeah, I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
But also you have to realize they're exposed to harsh metals, and that those can be carcinogens as well. That harmful to their health.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm saying, like I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't send my son to do that. But the reality is that if I wouldn't do it and I wouldn't send my son to do it, who would do it? Like who's it good for? And if somebody does do it, how do you compensate them for it? Do you pay them an excess amount of money? Because like I was pointing out yesterday, like I wouldn't do garbage, right? But in New York, or at least like I think in America, generally speaking, the garbage collectors make a good amount of money, right? Because it's like even though it's something that's like nobody would personally want to do, their incentive there is, hey, you know what? You get some high wages for it. That is a thing. So maybe possibly, but again, if you really develop an economy such that black people have an opportunity to not be garbage collectors, or not be farmers, or not be miners or whatever, then if it goes to a certain point where nobody wants to do any of that stuff, right? Then suddenly that economy doesn't have the better things going for it. Now, what that means now is that maybe possibly you can pay them a certain amount of money for it. But again, that also comes back to like how affordable that is in terms of manufacturing. How affordable is it? I mean, how affordable is it for this to run the it's pretty complicated. I'd advise people to look at the the Congo, the video that is linked in the Discord. There's this video on the Congo, like just the situation in the Congo, and one of them shows like this particular politician who's making bank off of this off of the Congolese off of the coltan trade, and he's pulling in millions, right? But they're like sending in children to get these. They're showing children and adults to get these to get the Congo to get the minerals out. It's a dangerous job. Sometimes these mines can collapse and kill people. But the children are doing it. The whole mining village is pretty poor, and the politician in charge is rich, but he's also well defended, guns, all that, right? Guards and all that kind of stuff. The question becomes, though, how do you like if people go to this village or go to this mine in order to get rich, and they do get rich and they move out, right? How do you keep a labor force? It's an interesting question. It's a question that, as Arthur Joy points out, we have to come together and try to solve, but we're not trying to solve it. Arthur Joy says probably we don't need coltan. Probably the life is most important. We need a system that makes the right decision. So about coltan. So coltan is a superconductor, and it's used in these computers and this and like a lot of the higher technology. So if we want to launch satellites, if we want to go into smartphones, if we want to do smart weapons, okay? So smart weapons meaning, like, let's say you have a rifle that kind of gives you some aim assist, like where, you might have shot too far left and it auto corrects it, or you have a drone. So yes, you might say, hey, you know what? We don't need this smart technology, possibly, but unfortunately, we're in a world where they send drones, and you have to explode the drone before the drone explodes your head, and so that's where that industrialization, that production comes into play, where you want to say, you know what, yeah, let's leave the coltan alone, right? But then if your enemy has this sort of technological hand over you, then you're at risk. It says the better things and their importance, those themselves are so tied into our Western programming. Yeah, the better things. Yeah, I mean, and that's the issue. The programming is not just this is good. The programming is also, at the end of the day, if you like these people will have their weapons notwithstanding. They'll have the smart technology notwithstanding. They'll have the satellites notwithstanding. And if you do not also get those satellites, then you're in trouble. What's his name? Kofi said, can you post it in this chat? So I'm thinking he means the video in the Congo. I'm going to just look on thing quickly. Although I probably let me see. If you go to the Discord, you see under potentially interesting. Now the only issue is that there's like a million videos, so I'll try to look it up for you real quick. I'm just gonna scroll up through. All right, bro. I don't know if I could give it to you right now, but just go on Discord, search. Actually, let me see if I can do that. Search Congo, and hopefully that's gonna bring a older conversation on the Congo. What's so funny? All right. Arthur Joy says, as long as you have Africans who want the better things of the West, they will sell us out in a heartbeat. True. The better things. We need a new understanding. Smartphones, smart weapons, that shit ain't progress. As long as we are competing, we become like our disease competition. Yeah, and that's the trouble, This is why I actually want to say that, if we understand what Marxism is really about, Marxism is about England. Yeah, England becoming England turning against itself, and the English proletariat ending capitalism where it started, or at the center of it. if the English, if it, like I said about economic systems, you can stop being a hunter gatherer yourself, but you don't end hunter gatherism that way. You could stop being a fisherman yourself, but that doesn't end fishing as an economy. The reality is that no matter if you turn like Russia became this huge quote unquote socialist power, but that did not stop the capitalist world. What would stop the capitalist world is if the capitalist workers, in a sense, then stop the capitalist world themselves. But it has nothing to do with you. So as Arthur Joy is pointing out, so this is actually the basis of communism or Marxism or scientific socialism, is this idea that the proletariat, the working class of the West, would overthrow this global economic system that the West is promoting, And for us to say, oh, well, we want to do socialism, we're kind of misunderstanding the fact that we don't destroy capitalism in that way, because capitalism is a Western phenomenon, and it's upon the Westerners, namely the Western majority, the whites, to destroy their own economic system. Whatever we do, what we can do is we could just get out of their economic system, but even that's not going to be too effective. But yeah, like you said, the competition, yeah. At the end of the day, this world this world has this creature, this cancer in a sense, that's growing out of Europe, and what can we do about it? There's a lot of things you could do about it, obviously, but but people understand what I'm saying. You have a cancer on the planet, and there's something that has to be done about it. Yeah, sorry, Kofi, I couldn't find it, so just at me in Discord later, and maybe I'll find it then. So in 1945, the 45,000 dead at Sétif could go unnoticed. In 1947, the 90,000 dead in Madagascar was written off in a few lines in the press. In 1952, the 200,000 victims of repression in Kenya were met with relative indifference because the international contradictions were not sufficiently clear-cut. The Korean War, the war in Indochina, has already established a new phase, but it was above all Budapest and Suez, which constituted the deciding moment of this confrontation. So, pay attention to this. 45,000 dead at Sétif. 90,000 dead in Madagascar. 200,000 victims of repression. These are big numbers. They have industrialized warfare. They have industrialized repression, industrialized oppression. This was what the outrage over Hitler, I guess, was, where he could murder multiple people in a span of hours, which is just like the world was turning to a place where you can, and these are like you talk about Madagascar and Kenya, these are humans going through this, humans, the equal of you, being tortured, crushed, beaten, destroyed, all for the exploitation of wealth, or the extraction of wealth. Anyway, heartened by the unconditional support of the socialist countries, the colonized hurled themselves with whatever weapons they possess against the impregnable citadel of colonialism. Although the citadel is invincible against knives and bare hands, its invincibility crumbles when we take into account the context of the Cold War. In the new context, the Americans take their role as the barons of international capitalism very seriously. At first, they advise the European countries to decolonize on gentlemen's terms. In a second phase, they have no hesitation first proclaiming their respect and their support for the principle, Africa for the Africans. I didn't even know they had that. All right. Today, the U.S. has no qualms officially declaring that they are the defenders of the rights of people to self-determination. The latest voyage by Mr. Menon Williams illustrates all too well the American consciousness that the third world must not be sacrificed. Understandably, violence is a desperate act only if it is compared in abstracto to the military machine of the oppressors. On the other hand, violence in the context of international relations, we realize, represents a formidable threat to the oppressor. Persistent jacqueries and malvegetation disrupt the economic life of a colony, but pose no threat to the metropolis. A greater threat, as far as imperialism is concerned, is that socialist propaganda might infiltrate the masses and contaminate them. It is already a serious risk during the conflict's cold period. But what would happen to the colony routed by bloody guerrilla warfare in the event of a real war? So he says, Mama agitation disrupt the economic life of a colony, but pose no threat to the metropolis. So, yeah, okay, so pay attention to this right here. He's saying the malvegetation disrupts the economic life of a colony, but pose no threat to the metropolis. A greater threat, as far as imperialism is concerned, is that socialist propaganda might infiltrate the masses and contaminate them. There's always a serious risk during the conflict's cold period. But what would happen to the colony routed by guerrilla warfare? So, again, socialist propaganda is interesting. It's this basic idea that you have to smash the economic system. You have to destroy the economy, right? So they're saying, hey, if people were trying, like there's one way, and that is if you were to destroy the economy, right? You destroy the economy, people find that, like the people who are running the economy find that as a threat, It's not necessarily a productive outlet, but it is technically something that they do not want, as opposed to, and it's the same as the, Mama agitation. He's like, Mama agitation, they're fighting guerrilla warfare in the forests, kind of just randomly attacking farms. It does disrupt the economic life of the colony, but the city still runs. The city, for what it's worth, is, as I was pointing out earlier, is importing and exporting goods. It's bringing in seasoning from abroad. It's sending out, whatever. It's this you want to disrupt. If you have the workers going on strike and all that kind of stuff, to a large extent, it can crumble the economy. And make. What are you eating, my brother?
Hey man, just reading, man.
Eating his jollof, I guess. All right, capitalism then. Capitalism then realizes that its military strategy. You said what? All right. Capitalism then realizes that its military strategy has everything to lose if national conflicts were to break out. In the framework of peaceful coexistence, therefore, every colony is destined to disappear, and taking it to the extreme, neutrality will command capitalism's respect. What must be avoided at all costs are strategic risks, the espousal by the masses of an enemy doctrine, and radical hatred by tens of millions of men. The colonized peoples are perfectly aware of these imperatives which dominate international politics. This is why even those who rage against violence always plan and act on the basis of this global violence. Today, the peaceful coexistence between the two blocks maintains... Wait, hold on a second. Onitaset says, exactly, a cancer. Kofi says, cool. So he says, capitalism then realizes its military has everything to lose, right? In the framework of peaceful coexistence, therefore, every colony is destined to disappear, and taking it to the extreme, neutrality will command capitalism's respect. What must be avoided at all costs are strategic risks, the espousal by the masses of an enemy doctrine, and radical hatred by tens of millions of men. So they want to control how you think. They want to control your mindset and what doctrines you adhere to. The colonized peoples are perfectly aware of these imperatives which dominate international politics. This is why even those who rage against violence always plan and act on the basis of global violence. Today, the peaceful coexistence between the two blocks maintains and aggravates the violence in colonial countries. Perhaps tomorrow we shall see as a shift in the violence once the colonial territories have been fully liberated. Perhaps we shall see the issue of minorities raised. Already some of them have no qualm advocating violent methods in response to their problems, and it is no coincidence that, so we have learned, black radicals in the U.S. have formed armed militia groups. It is no coincidence either that the so-called free world, there are defense committees for Jewish minorities in the USSR, and that the General de Gaulle, in one of his speeches, shed a few tears for the millions of Muslims oppressed by the communist dictatorship. Imperialism and capitalism are convinced that the fight against racism and national liberation movements are purely and simply controlled and masterminded from the outside, so they decide to deploy practical tactics such as the creation of the Radio Free Europe and committees for the defense of oppressed minorities. They practice anti-colonialism the same way the French colonels in Algeria engaged in counterterrorism with the SAS, Sections Administrative Specialized, or psychological warfare. They use the people against the people. We know where that got them. So here he's talking about how apparently the the French or the Western world, the so-called free world, whatever, were using the oppression of Muslims and Jews in Russia as a reason to attack socialists and socialism and the other and their enemies. And we see this today. I actually saw some sister was talking about how China is also oppressing some, like, kills some, I think, Mulgars or something. I can't remember. But there's this idea that the Western world is concerned with civil liberties and national minorities, in a sense, oppressed minorities, only when it comes to the other nations, right? When it comes to their nations, and it's the same with it's worked the other way. And I have this post on geopolitics, or this YouTube video on geopolitics, where I go over this Russian document where they say, let's stir up racial agitation in America. Let's stir up the issue of Black Americans against, in order to stir that kind of, political destabilization in America. Is to say that that's what nations do. It's not so much that they don't know what the right thing is. It's not that America doesn't know what the right thing is. It's more so that what they want is more power. What they want is to destroy their opposition and their enemies. And it behooves you to try to find something decent in them. Try to listen to them in any shape or form, because, at the end of the day, as long as they're the powerhouse, that's where they want to be. Everything leads back to that. By the way, I got 0 likes on this video, so make sure y'all put some likes up while you're here, right? Okay, so this threatening atmosphere of violence and missiles in no way frightens or disorients the colonized. We have seen that their entire recent history has prepared them to understand the situation between colonial violence and the insidious violence in which the modern world is steeped. There is a kind of complicit correlation, a homogeneity. The colonized have adapted to this atmosphere. For once they are in tune with their time, people are sometimes surprised that instead of buying a dress for their wife, the colonized buy a transistor radio. They shouldn't be. The colonized are convinced their fate is in the balance. They live in a doomsday atmosphere and nothing must elude them. This is why they fully understand Foma and Fomi, Lumumba and Shombe, Ahido and Momi, Kenyatta and those introduced from time to time to replace him. They fully understand all these men because they are able to unmask the forces behind them. The colonized, underdeveloped man is today a political creature in the most global sense of the term. So again, he's talking about particularly his time. Colonized people, who are ready for revolution, who are ready for freedom, ready for decolonization, are a sight to see, obviously. But today, what we have is, Africans who, like the neocolonial apparati, won. The colonial system maintained itself. The plantation maintains itself. They maintain themselves because we did not dare to explore the question of, well, how do we get these things? And even how Arthur Joy is saying, hey, you know what? We don't need the coltan. True. But the issue becomes the foreigner wants this coltan. The foreigner wants this coltan. So what do we do? How do we resist the foreigner? And so this is why Congo to this day is just this weak state with weak leaders, sellouts through and through. Why? Because the colonizer wants this coltan. Now, if we say, hey, we don't want it, that's fine. But when the world wants something, you either, and if you can't resist the world, then the world gets that. That's really what it comes to. Independence has certainly brought the colonized peoples moral reparation and recognized their dignity, but they have not yet had time to elaborate a society. So independence has certainly brought the colonized peoples moral reparation and recognized their dignity, but they have not yet had time to elaborate a society or build and ascertain values. The glowing focal point where the citizens and individuals develop and mature in a growing number of areas does not yet exist. Situated in a kind of indeterminate state, they have fairly quickly convinced themselves that everything is decided elsewhere for everyone at the same time. As for the leaders, which when confronted with such a situation, they hesitate and choose a policy of neutrality. There is much to be said on the subject of neutrality. Some liken it to a kind of loathsome mercantilism which consists of taking handouts left and right. But although neutrality, a creation of the Cold War, always allows underdeveloped countries to receive economic aid from both sides, it does not permit either of these two sides to come to the aid of underdeveloped regions the way they should. Those literally astronomical sums invested in arms research, those engineers transformed into technicians of nuclear war, could raise the living standards of the undeveloped country by 60% in 15 years. So this is one of the things with socialists. I'm just gonna go into it right now. Is that they're looking for handouts. They're like, hey, you know what? The way how the Westerners have so much money invested in arms research, and they have engineers that can do nuclear war. What they could really do is they could raise the living standards of underdeveloped countries. They could come into in 15 years. They can go into Jamaica and make it into a paradise, right? In 15 years. But the question is always going to be, why would America or Russia go over to Jamaica where they're like Jamaica doesn't have a Russian population, doesn't have an American population. I mean, sure, there might be a few there, but why are you moving your resources to develop a nation of black Africans in Jamaica, right? Maybe 2 million, it's not that many, but still. Why are you using your resources of your country to develop the black community in another country? What do you get from that? What do you get from that? And so shaming the Westerners, right? Shaming the Westerners. Yeah, exactly. Shaming the Westerners for that, right? Just doesn't. It's the same that we do in America. We do the same thing in America. We're like, hey, because here's the reality. This white boy could fix the hood easy. Maybe not. Maybe he can't do it easy. No, he can't do it easy, but he could. He could do it, right? Question is why? He's going to take out like let's say in order to fix because we talk about New York, right? In order to fix this Brooklyn hood, it's going to cost, let's say, $3 billion, right? Over 20 years or something, right? Or over 10 years. $3 billion over 10 years, right? The budget of New York City is maybe, I want to say, I can't remember, maybe like $5 billion. I don't know. But who cares, right? The point is that it's like you're going to move all these resources to fix this neighborhood, right? For what? You understand? Like, for what? What do you get from fixing a neighborhood that you don't live in? What do you get from that? What do you get from fixing a community that doesn't like you? What do you get from that?
Good feeling.
You see what I'm saying? Now, and that's what it is. That's what it comes to. At least, like, for instance, if they open up their immigration channel to Jamaica, at least they can get some, Jamaican, and I'm using Jamaica now because this brother don't let me use it in another country, but at least they can get some smart person from Jamaica, to go work in their community and contribute to their economy. They get something from that. This would be a good time to use in Nigeria, to be honest, but because a lot of times Nigeria has some. Yeah, Nigeria has some really talented, intelligent individuals, right? And America, opens its door to those really talented, intelligent individuals. And of course, there are exceptions to that because I don't want this brother to get a big head. But he's like, yeah, you're right, Mom. My mama came through. You know what I'm saying? There's exceptions to this rule. But anyway.
No exception.
Anyway, but like, no, for real. There was this example of this brother who was like, apparently he was like some math whiz or something like that, right? He's in Nigeria, and like there's like the picture you see of him is like, I guess he's like a farmer or something. Like not a farmer, but like what do they call the thing? They had like a farming thing that they had in America, where you was like working for nothing. What's the thing called? Damn.
Sharecropper.
Yeah, sharecropper. So he's like the sharecropper in Nigeria. You know, like he's digging at somebody else's field, right? Apparently he is doing this to get some money but he can't afford to go to school in Nigeria. He gets a whole scholarship to come to some university in America. Why? Because he's like acing out all these math exams. That makes a lot more sense than America saying, you know what, that whole area of Nigeria, we're gonna, build you up and develop you. We're gonna use the resources of our country to build up and develop this community, and then that math genius is going to give all of his functionality and all of his brilliance to this Nigerian government that might be working with China or something like that. It doesn't benefit them. You know? So why would they do it? You said what?
It benefits the human community.
Nah, that's what I'm saying. In the real world, right? In the real world. No, all right, in the real world, it's like this. It's like this.
We're all the same.
No, it's like look at the Olympics, right?
Stop spreading hate.
Look at the Olympics. Does it make sense for my girl, Elaine Thompson, right? Fastest woman in the world, right?
All them people, all three of them. The whole team just.
Yeah, exactly. Does it make sense for any of them to like stand up for Sha'Carri? I mean, Elaine, sure, but does it make sense for any of them?
Conversation, bro. I don't think anybody in any other team in the world needs to stand up for Sha'Carri right now.
Yeah, Sha'Carri, but my point being though is that, or not even just stand up, let's say in reality, let's say it this way. Does it make sense for Elaine to train with Sha'Carri? I mean, you can train with Sha'Carri. I mean, if you need to, but you understand what I'm saying. Basically,
no. For Olympics, no. Or like they do like individual like track tournaments.
Yeah, exactly. I know rival basketball teams train with each other too. You know what I mean? Like I know that. I mean, like, but mostly what I mean is that at the end of the day, when you're on different sides, you don't help the opposition. You don't help the adversary.
Sure.
Even though you're all human beings, right?
Rather, I would say this: you do everything for the betterment of your side.
Exactly. So now the question becomes, we come back to what Fanon is saying. He says those literally astronomical sums invested in arms research. America spent a lot in America and Russia spent a lot in arms at the time, right? Are those engineers transformed into technicians of nuclear war? So they're capable of this kind of stuff, right? Could raise the living standards of the undeveloped countries by 60% in 15 years. Why? The critique you're giving doesn't make any sense. No, because here's the thing: Germany raised themselves up, picked themselves up. Japan picked themselves up. Russia picked themselves up. China picked themselves up. Nobody's going to pick you up. America did not pick up any of these countries. And the reason why they did is because if they did, you pick up the wrong person. You said what?
Say if anything, they try to subjugate some of them.
Exactly, because if you pick up the wrong person, right? Imagine if you picking up Germany, then Hitler show up. You know what I'm saying? like fucked up. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Are you picking up Japan, and then the Emperor of Japan shows up. Exactly. Pearl Harbor happens. You cannot pick up another people. You can only pick up yourself and the thing is this: if you're a country that is interested in not having to Pearl Harbor, is interested in not having a nuclear bomb dropped on you, because that's what Germany would have done. Yeah, exactly. Germany would have bombed the United States of America.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? You should. You know what I'm saying? The only people that would be talking right now is probably you, because you in the middle, because your folk was in Nigeria at the time. I mean, actually no, my folk was in Jamaica. So
You in Jamaica? You could chill.
Yeah, exactly. We would be a lot, but a lot of these people around here, man, shit. You know what I'm saying? We would have, yeah. You know what I'm saying? We would have just even see. We would just be saying, you know, this podcast would sound like "Hasong Kaching Kaoshu." You know, like we just be thinking German. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You know what I'm saying? But the point is that, you know, if you do not want that situation, then you put down other people, and that's exactly what America has been doing. And then we criticize them, but it's like, yeah, well, you know, what do you expect? Anyway, it is therefore obvious that the undeveloped countries have no real interest in either prolonging or intensifying this Cold War, but they are never asked for their opinion. So that's what he's saying. He's like, well, you see, that's what I'm saying. It's like, he's like, the Cold War should end. Like, we don't want the Cold War to continue. That way we can have a handout and other countries can help develop us. That don't make no damn sense. Real talk. But anyway, but they are never asked for their opinion, so whenever they can, they disengage. But can they really do so? For example, here is France testing its atomic bombs in Africa, even allowing for the resolutions, the meetings, and slammings of the doors on diplomatic relations. It cannot be said that the African people have much impact on France's attitude in this particular sector. So that goes back to brother Anthony saying, you know, well, who cares about this Coltan? The reality is, this white boy still got these freaking bombs. You know, like if you just said, you know, if, there was this philosophy that I heard of. It's called Luddite. Luddites are people who allegedly don't like technology. They withdraw from technology and blah 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 blah. And
so like
the Mormons or whatever, right?
No, not Mormons. Amish.
Amish, yeah. But like, yeah, you can go about with that life, sure. But again, if other people are interested in what you want and they have atomic weapons, you can say, you know what, I forsake this. I don't care for this, you know, I don't care for that. And I mean, sure, like internet, smartphones, all that kind of stuff, kind of not all that, whatever. But you could say, I don't care for any of this stuff, sure. And then when that sky, you know, when you hear that whistle in the sky, you got about 10 seconds to go underground and be burned underground. You know what I'm saying? like you got 10 seconds to say whatever prayer, you know, pray to whatever gods you worship. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Like, you got 10 seconds to pray to whatever damn gods you worship. That's it. Exactly. You got to go out the list. You know what I'm saying? You gotta keep it simple. You gotta name the big ones. You know what I'm saying? You gotta name that crime you didn't get arrested for. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta say something. But shit, because that you hear that whistle, that's about it. You know what I'm saying? You gonna hear that one helicopter. You know what I'm saying? No, not one helicopter. That one.
What if you on the 10th floor? You gotta wait on the elevator or just jump down the stairs?
Nah, it don't matter. It don't matter what you do. You're just gonna show up on the wall. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna be a shadow on the wall. It don't matter what you do. Just make it. You got 10 seconds to strike a pose. That's about it. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. People are gonna say, "Oh, no, this dude, look like this dude was peeing." You know what I'm saying?
It's like I think it was Mount Vesuvius, that volcano back in like BC times in Greece. And, like the ashes everywhere. Then they found one dude. They said he was lying down. He was checking off. I was like, yo. That's the last thing they found.
Look, man. He was like, I bet they gonna laugh at this. Yeah, we laughing, I guess.
I'm gonna die. Let me just go out this way.
And he probably wrote down a note, but that burned. You know what I'm saying? So he probably like, I'm just joking. You know, I'm just joking, guys. I just thought it was funny, and it's like, we don't know, man. It seems like he was a pervert or something. You know?
That's how we gonna remember you.
Like, it seems like there's something wrong with you, but anyway, but that.
Disaster, you over here.
Right, imagine a volcano, lava coming up to you, and you just. Well, I guess I might as well. Because I might as well squeeze one out.
One thing on your mind, bro.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you could do, like, everybody else is caught running, you know what I'm saying?
You lying down.
He lying on his back. Anyway, sure. Anyway, but neutrality produces in the citizen of the third world an attitude of mind which translates in everyday life to a brazenness and heretic pride, strangely resembling an act of defiance. There is, strictly speaking, a scandalous discrepancy between what these men claim to be and what in fact they have to back them up. The countries without urban transportation, without troops, and without money cannot just justify flaunting such bravado. It is without doubt an imposture. So yeah, if you don't have urban transportation, troops, and money, you can't be about that bravado, obviously. It is without doubt an imposture. The third world often gives the impression it revels in sensationalism and needs its weekly dose of crisis. These leaders of empty countries who talk loud are exasperating. You said what?
I'm talking to myself, bro. I'm looking to see if I get paid.
Yeah, you're getting paid, my dude. All right. Yeah, I know that. All right. You would like to...
At HR.
Yeah, right.
Discord.
This dude, man. All right. You'd like to shut up. He's like, you'd like to shut them up. I don't know why you're going to say it. You'd like to shut them up, but instead they are wooed. They are given bouquets of flowers, invitations. To be frank, everyone wants a piece of them. And that is what we call neutrality. For a population 90%, 80% illiterate, there is, however, an enormous amount of literature written about them. They are constantly on the move. The leaders and students of the underdeveloped countries are a gold mine for the airlines. Asia and African officials can attend a seminar on socialist planning in Moscow one week and then another on free trade in London and at Columbia University the next. As for African labor union members, they are making enormous progress. No sooner are they appointed to positions of leadership than they decide to group themselves into autonomous units. They do not have the 50 years experience of labor unions in an industrialized country, but they already know the non-political unionism is an absurdity. They have not had to deal with the bourgeoisie bulldozer. They have not developed the consciousness from the class struggle, but perhaps this is not required. Perhaps we shall see that this totalizing determination, which often becomes a caricature of internationalism, is one of the most basic characteristics of underdeveloped countries. So again, he's saying that basically the Western, like the Cold War, was having this impact where it was radicalizing Africans and Asians into the different economic models, whether it was Moscow or London's, socialism or capitalism, and it got them going back and forth and organizing according to these Western models, but it's laughable. Again, we are not developing our own economic systems, but instead we were being, given flowers and trying to be wooed in order to develop an economic system that benefited the economic powerhouses of the time. And that is something that continues to this day where, Africans are now getting training in China and they're getting training in America. And yeah, exactly. And it's yeah, your language is excuse. But that's what it is. We are we're not having this symposium to discuss the economy on our own. Now, I almost read that other book. Exactly. I almost read that other book, but that was boring too. What was the book? The one about, I think it was Cabral. We were trying to read that.
No, I remember when he legit was like a report that some reviewer went to the farm. Okay, we got about 2 bushels of yam.
Yeah, he was like, that was like straight up. That's what it takes.
A whole bunch of bananas and plantains.
Yeah, that's what it takes. Like when he was going different ethnic groups talking about what they produce, how they produced it, blah blah. Like that's what it would take. But we're not doing that. Instead, we doing the easy way, which is the Westerner says.
It's a good resource. It's a good resource to have, especially when you're doing that planning. But every down leisure, no.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, but that's the thing, though. It's like if the Westerner is saying, "Hey, come to us. We'll tell you how to develop your economy. We'll give you a flight to London. We'll give you a flight to Columbia University. We'll discuss blah blah blah."
But knowing all that, and knowing how you were already colonized before, how can you be so naive? Like, okay, let's go. Like, come on, bro.
Well, that's the thing about the world is that these are not your colonizers. So like if France colonized you.
I'll give you this though. But while you were being colonized, they were sitting on silence watching it happen.
Yeah, there's different nations though. It's like if France is doing something, you might be like, hey, I don't trust France, but does that mean you don't trust Russia? Does that mean you don't trust the United States? Does that mean you don't trust England? And if the United States and Russia are fighting, does that mean you don't trust either of them?
So I guess what you say, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
You don't know.
Okay.
And then at the same time, it's like they're willing, because that's what happens in the real world. It's like, yeah, it's like that's what happened with Nzinga. Nzinga was like, hey, I don't want to deal with these Portuguese, but the Dutch were like, hey, we can help you with the Portuguese. We don't like the Portuguese either. So it really comes back to, this is why I say the most important thing is this national point of view, and because yeah, when it comes to nations, it goes back to the same thing. It's like another example would be, if you're in Tanzania and Uganda were in war, right? So in that conflict, how do you look at, like, do you dismiss the whole black race, or do you dismiss the countries that were allied with Uganda or the countries that were allied with Tanzania? Because it comes back to what, like, you have to look at the flag, and of course these same countries are going to use propaganda against you, because you're going to show up to Columbia University and you're going to see black students and black professors and black. Yeah, exactly. You go to London, you see the same. You go to Moscow, you see, W. Du Bois is like, hey, what's up? How are you doing? Welcome to Moscow. Nah, but like, look, a lot of the black socialists were in Moscow.
In exile.
Yeah, like you go to like Castro says, hey, I'll help you out, and
Was it Robert F. Williams?
a lot of people, Du Bois.
They were like in exile. They were like treated like royalty. Like,
That's what I'm saying, but that's the whole propaganda, because at one point you might have said, hey, well, it's just a bunch of white folk. But then you say, no, it was just the French. That's how the French treat people.
I hear you.
You know what I mean? And that's the confusion that we have, but it makes a lot of sense. Because that's why when you go back into the ancient world, people say, hey, Rome wasn't necessarily an all black state. Egypt wasn't necessarily an all white state. Egypt wasn't necessarily an all black state. Greece wasn't necessarily an all, like, there were different. Yeah. No, there were different nationality, like, there were different races in the country.
Not all the time.
Oh, all the time. What? For what?
For Egypt, I'm talking specifically Egypt though. I'm pretty sure that was time it was a black nation.
No, it was. That's saying the leadership was black, but the population.
I'm mistaken. Nubia.
No, Nubia was black. Yeah, that's not Egypt though. Yeah, Nubia was black.
I mean, Nubia be black.
No, Nubia was black as well. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just too damn hot. That's the equator, man. You talking about the equator? Yeah, damn well, that shit, man. Equator? Yeah. It's like asking about, like the polar ice caps. Like, of course it's only white folk up there. Ain't no black man trying to hang out no polar ice cap. That's like a polar bear. Like, when the bears turn white, you know what I'm saying? Like, damn well, you can't find a black man there, so of course it's white, man. But nah. But like those Mediterranean regions might have been a little bit more diverse. You know what I mean?
Maybe the Moors.
Yeah, the Moors. Yeah. But all right, let's see. Yeah, so anyway. So as for African labor unions, he's surprised, blah, blah, blah. Most basic characteristic. So he's like the internationalism, so on and so forth. But let us return to the single combat between the colonized and the colonists. It is clearly and plainly an armed struggle. Indochina, Indonesia, and of course North Africa are historical examples. But we should never lose sight of the fact that the struggle could have broken out anywhere, in Guinea as well as Somaliland, and even today it can break out anywhere where colonialism intends to stay. In Angola, for instance, the existence of an armed struggle is indicative that the people are determined to put their faith only in violent methods. The very same people who had it constantly drummed into them that the only language they understood was that of force now decide to express themselves with force. In fact, the colonists has always shown them the path that they should follow to liberation. The argument chosen by the colonized was conveyed to them by the colonists, and by an ironic twist of fate is now the colonized who state that it is the colonizer who only understands the language of force. The colonial regime owes its legitimacy to force, and at no time does it ever endeavor to cover up this nature of things. Every statue of Van der Bay or Lyoté Bougade or Blandin, every one of these conquistadors ensconced on colonial soil is a constant reminder of one and the same thing. We are here by the force of the bayonet. Everyone knows the rest of the quote. During the insurrectionist stage... Actually, I don't know the rest of the quote. Like, what's the rest of the quote? Like, he should have just wrote the rest of the quote, because this book is, it's being written 50 years later. Like, we don't know that quote. But all right. And plus, it's like, he probably wrote it in French, so he probably should have just finished the quote. instead of saying everyone knows that quote. But anyway, during the insurrectional stage, every colonist reasons on the basis of simple arithmetic. Such a logic is no surprise to the other colonists, but it is important to point out that it is no surprise to the colonized either. And first and foremost, stating the principle "it's them or us" is not a paradox, since colonialism, as we have seen, is precisely the organization of a Manichaean world, of a compartmentalized world. And when advocating an exact line of procedure, the colonists asked every representative of the oppressed minority to take out 30 or 100 or 20 natives. He realizes there's no outcry of indignation, and at the most the issue boils down to whether it can be done in one step or in stages. Colonists asked every representative of... Dang, okay. All right. So the line of reasoning which... so number 5. So he says, in obvious that the general cleanup destroys the thing one wants to save. This is exactly what Sartre indicates when he says, in short, by the very act of repeating them, i.e. racist ideas, one shows that it is impossible for everyone to unite simultaneously against the natives, that it's merely shifting recurrence, and that in any case such a quote, unification could occur as an active grouping only so as to massacre the colonized people, which is the perpetual absurd temptation of the colonialists, and of which, if it were possible, would amount to the immediate destruction of colonization. So, okay, so this person is saying that if you were to kill every colonized person, right, which is what the colonialists want to do, it would end colonization, because colonization, depends on the human labor. But anyway, this line of reasoning, which envisages the surgical elimination of the colonized, does not merely upset the colonized subject. He has always known that his dealing with the colonists would take place in the field of combat. So the colonized subject wastes no time lamenting and almost never searches for justice in the colonial context. In fact, if the colonist argument leaves the colonized subject unmoved, it is because the latter poses the issue of his liberation in virtually in identical terms. Let us form groups of 200 or 500 and let each group deal with the colonist. It is in this mutual frame of mind that both protagonists begin the struggle. For the colonized... So yeah, basically he's just saying that, colonization ends in violence. That's what it is.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the thing is this, though, that, what do you do with the neo-colonial situation? What do you do with the neo-colonial economy? The economy, the economy of colonization is not to work for 90% of the people. What do you do about that economy when it's black people and not a foreign, when it's your flag and not another person's flag? What do you do? Does it end in violence? Because what happens is that we see countless examples of coups in Africa, right? We see countless examples of Africans discontented with the economy and wanting to change things. It really behooves us, as Africans who are, at least sitting outside of this situation, to not get into the situation and really advocate for some real solutions. But again, how can you do that if the system is run with violence? You go down to the particular African country and you say, hey, you know what? The issue is this XYZ, or we have to end this with violence. And yeah, if you make it to the prison, you're lucky. You know what I mean? If you make it to the prison, you are lucky. Because they're not playing in Africa. I tell you that one of my favorite jokes, or one of the only jokes I like from this guy, Trevor Noah, is he says that, elections in America are different from elections in Africa. Elections in America, they go up and they talk, whatever, blah, blah. But elections in Africa, it's like the person drives in with a tank and says, yeah, I'm the president. And that's it. And everybody's like, yeah, he's the president. He has a tank. But that's...
You may die.
You said what?
You might die.
If you're a different candidate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
Against a powerful party.
If you going against the guy with the tank, you both show up at the debate. You show up at the debate. He drive in, he drive in with his tank, and you walk there, and the cannon's facing you, and he gives his speech, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna steal everything, and the other guy says, well, I'm not gonna steal as much. I'm not gonna steal it all, and then he gets blasted, and he's like, well, I guess this election is unopposed. That's it. Yeah, like the system is run with violence, and we inherited that system. But how do we get away from that? How do you get away from a system that obviously Sankara was a good example of, if you're depending on foreign rice, right, then just grow your own rice, grow your own rice.
It's the basics are so simple. I just don't see why it's so hard to actually implement.
Well, is why it's so hard to implement.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Revolutionary matron. Well, you should have never had hell inside of you, so she did you a favor.
That's a good one. Hey, keep reading.
I thought the sister was saying something though. What's wrong with you, man?
I was just wanting to implement that and interject that greed is the reason why. Until we have a shift of consciousness away from their idea of money and value consciousness, we won't have anything to really coalesce around and fight for. You asked me in the personality survey done by Onitaset, who is the illustrious writer of the Book of Power.
Shout out.
Whether or not it was better to have something to fight with or something to fight for. And both are true. You need to have a militarized group of people that have an idea that they are all connected to, so that they can be the violence that overpowers the violence that's going to come, like the guerrilla warfare or whatever else it is. And then their ideology has to be so firmly in place and united that no force is coming to divide them. That's one of the reasons why writers in the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th century, after the Ottoman War ended, said that the next war was going to be a religious war, because that is an ideology that a lot of people coalesce behind. They are willing to die for blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's true. The ideology of African people is not so developed and firm, right? And of course, the solidity of the who the enemy is. You said it was before? Well,
Yeah, it was.
I'm thinking about Sankara and how he's implementing the real solution.
Okay, I'm thinking past. Continue.
Yeah, Sankara implements a good solution, and he's on the way. And then his friend, the guy in the trenches with him, right? Sells exactly the homie sells him out to the Americans. Why is he engaging? And the question is, you said what? For chicken change, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like, and here's the thing though. What's interesting is this, that, like I said before, maybe, Sankara's fighting the French, he's fighting the French. So maybe if the Americans show up, you say to yourself, well, they're not French. But at the same time, it's like you have to have a broader consciousness to the point where you say, you know what, the French and the Americans are allies. The French and the Americans were working together. The Americans were helping the French when you were fighting the French. You have to look at it this way, because like the reality is that you're in trouble. You're in trouble because Sankara was done in by the homie. Not the country, but the homie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's how do we get away from that? How do we get away from that? That's really the big question. All right, let's keep going. For the colonized, this violence represents the absolute praxis. The militant, therefore, is one who works. The question which the organization asks the militant bears the mark of this vision of things. Where have you worked? With whom? What have you accomplished? The group requires each individual to have performed an irreversible act. In Algeria, for example, where almost all the men who called on the people to join the national struggle were sentenced to death or wanted by the French police, trust was proportional to the desperate nature of each case. A new militant could be trusted only when he could no longer return to the colonial system. See, that's what I'm saying. One of the things about that's what happened inside of I want to point that out. When I was doing the Freedom Party in America, right? The candidate in question was was what's his name? Charles Barron. Charles Barron was at the time he was running, for a congressperson for the Freedom Party, right? No, for the mayor of Freedom as a Freedom Party. Governor. He was running for the governor of New York under the Freedom Party, but he was at the time exactly right. He was at the time he was a congressman in the Democratic. No, he was an assemblyman in the. I'm just confusing, right? I'm that old. All right, he was an assemblyman. You said me and Trump. You said.
Chuck. His name's Charles. I think Chuck.
Well, you see, you confused too, right? Anyway, he was an assemblyman in the Democratic Party, like an assembly person in like some city or some county in Brooklyn or whatever, right? But the point is that if the Democrats can take you back in, and they did, then you got no business running on the opposition political party. Like that was good. That would have been the first sign. And see, that's part of the reason why I left the organization, because it was like, the leadership appointed this dude or assigned this dude that role, and then he betrayed us for the Democratic Party. But it was kind of common sense because he was in the Democratic Party, But he's a nice talking black man. So the leadership is saying, well, we kind of thought that he wouldn't betray his race, but that's where it comes to. It's like you have. The Americans show up and, it's going to be the liberal party of the Americans, the Democrats or whatever, or whomever, or the Green Party in America. It's always going to be something that isn't, it's always going to be someone saying that they're different, like the Republicans the Democrats are going to say they're different from the Republicans, and so you're going to say, oh, which one should I work with? I guess I'll work with you because you said you're different. But of course, like Nkrumah said, America is a one-party state, except for that, just with American extravagance, they just happen to have two of them. You know what I mean? But
Republic.
The Democratic Republic and the Republican Democrat, right? Or whatever. But the
democracy or whatever.
Yeah, like a Democratic Republic. Yeah, Democratic Republic. I mean, that makes sense. But the thing is that the issue is that you have to do something so that you cannot fall back, and that's kind of like how I did when I was like, actually when I was going to grad school, and I was like, I've had enough. I kind of like you burn your bridges. Like you need to get with people who burn their bridges. Like if you still got a bridge with the colonial system, and that's what he's saying. If you still have a bridge with the colonial system, you can't be trusted. You understand?
Dang, bro, that's how you really feel.
How every people feels.
Damn well this brother got his police radio on. You know what I'm saying?
Why do you think circumcision is a thing? It was to mark them as different. Why do you think there are
yeah, but why do you think circumcision?
Different facial and tribal markings that they have?
Oh yeah, no.
Like he was an old man when he did that, and said his future generations would do this so that they would be known and that there would be a distinction.
Oh, you're talking about that one? Yeah, but but that's the thing. It's like you cannot, like if you can fall back, if you didn't burn your bridge, then you're gonna be tempted to cross back, and you're not gonna be too serious with going forward. Because it's like if a man keeps his Machiavelli always talks about this. If a man's still talking to his ex, he might not be too serious with talking to other women, or he's not gonna, because he's like, oh well, I could always fall back, and that's one of the things that one of the issues that actually comes up in a lot of couples and a lot of relationships, early on, is that somebody finds out that somebody else is still messing around with somebody else, and they say, well, you didn't burn your bridge, and because you didn't burn your bridge, I don't know. You said what?
Only Samuels.
Hold on a second. My son just called me. Hold on a second. All right, peace, family. You said if people have the opportunity to retreat, they will. Like I'm saying, if you can retreat, you will. You know, if you can't retreat, you won't.
Can you let her finish the question first?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Wait, hold up. That was the fullness of the question. We're gonna let the illustrious teacher.
Wait, I didn't hear the question. What was the question? I didn't hear no question. I just came back. I was letting myself. No, I thought I heard a pause. All right, what's going on? What was the question? What happened?
That was the question. Is that historically, we have historical evidence that shows whenever they're facing a difficult adversary, that if they are allowed to retreat because they can, that they will retreat. One of the things that the British soldiers did, they held the line, okay? But if they could have retreated and got the hell out of there, they would have. So my question is, whenever someone is leading a movement or pushing forward, do you think that, or as long as they have the option to retreat, that when shit hit the fan and it get a little bit hard, that they will?
That they will retreat. Yeah, look. This was written in Roots. So if you read the book Roots, you're gonna see that Kunta Kinte goes through an initiation process where they discuss warfare. And one of the things that they discuss in this war plan is this, it's obviously a fictionalized account of what was the discussion there, but it repeats in another history. I can't remember where else I read it, but they're saying that if you attack an enemy, right? If you attack them from it's better to attack them from 3 sides than 4 sides. Because if you attack them from 4 sides, they are going to, like, you enclose them from all 4 sides, then they're going to fight harder than if you give them from 3 sides. Because if you get them from 3 sides, yeah, because they still lose whether it's 4 sides or 3 sides, but they're not going to fight as hard because they have an option to retreat. So just militarily speaking, that's what they do with the hood. That's what I should say that. That's what the hood is about. The hood is not it's a trap, but it's not a trap. You know what I mean? Like you sit in the hood, you know that there are some economic opportunities, whether that be basketball, whether that be movies, whether that be rapping. Exactly. Or whether it be going to school and getting your education or whatever, right? Whatever it be, you said education? That's not how it's pronounced? What? No, but what? No, I'm joking. All right, where is that from though? I can't remember where that's from. But anyway. Anyway, but like the point is that they don't say black folk can't do nothing. You know, they give you, because if they said black folk can't do nothing, yeah, you probably fight. Yeah, exactly, you probably fight. But if they say, hey, there's a way, like they showing you examples of black people who are, scientists, black people who are doctors, black people who are this, black people that. You not saying, oh, everything is terrible. You saying, well, I mean, it might not work for me, but it's working out for my, like I could hope for my kid to do this, or make sure you go to school and you could get your, you get your education and you might become a lawyer someday and blah blah. And there are stories like that. You got brothers, in fact that dude that the one who was getting all that hate from all the other basketball players, he was like Kwaku, right? Kwaku Brown or something like that. But he did Kwame Brown, yeah. I don't know. I knew it was a Ghanaian name. All right, I knew it was a Ghanaian name. But Kwame Brown, he was like, yeah, I saw one of his videos and he's like, the people who made it out of the hood or whatever should come back into the hood and explain, people, oh, this is how I did it, this is blah, 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 like the mentorship program. But that's the point. It's like, if you have those kind of things available to the people in these communities, then they're not going to be as much of a revolter. Your mama is not going to tell you, go out and kill you a cracker, right? She's going to say, oh yeah, you playing basketball? Well, good for you. Like I knew a lady who was, had a son who, was like a good football player. And she wanted him to get into the NFL, She want like black people want their children to become these big athletes and then eventually support their like they believe that's a possibility.
Yeah, well, maybe we can understand like the reason behind it for survival. Maybe that's what we're
Exactly, but now if you that's what I'm saying, you have a way out. You're cornered 3 walls, you have a way out. Now if they didn't have basketball players and football players and doctors and medical, so on and so forth. If they didn't have that, then of course you're gonna have rebellions. That's why they let you do that little stuff.
Correct. Hope is a drug fed in small doses to the community. I can't tell you how many times and how many people point to the rose that against all odds pours out from the concrete to kiss the sunshine. But what about all the rosebuds that had the same ability and desire, but they just didn't get the opportunity because they were under concrete that was correct?
That's what I'm saying.
When they were stepped on.
Sure. I stepped on a rose the other day. No, I'm just I just right? Sure. Big man. Big man, right? Big man stepping on roses. All right. Where have you worked with whom, blah, blah. So in Algeria, for example, they're almost all the men who, blah, blah, who were wanted for death by the French police. So you can't go back to the French police if the French police want you dead. You understand? Trust is proportional to the desperate nature of each case. A new militant could be trusted only when he could no longer return to the colonial system. Such a mechanism apparently existed in Kenya with the Mau Mau, who required every member of the group to strike the victim. Everyone was therefore personally responsible for the death of the victim. To work means to work towards the death of the colonists. Claiming responsibility for the violence also allows those members of the group who have stayed and who have been outlawed to come back to retake their place and be reintegrated. Violence can thus be understood to be the perfect mediation. And that's what it is inside of the hood, inside of gangs. Yeah, you get your tier.
You want to be a part of us, you gotta do this too. Like,
yeah,
you know you're not a killer, but like, you know.
Yeah, there was actually a rap song. What's that guy's, the brother's name? Immortal Technique. Nah, Immortal Technique has this song where this dude is supposed to, sexually assault a woman. So y'all heard that song where he did that?
No.
Oh yeah, it was terrible because like Immortal Technique was, I think it's Immortal Technique, but he basically, spoiler, at the end of the song.
Sounds like a movie.
Yeah, because it was like episodic. But basically, they point out a victim. He chases this victim to like a ceiling, and then he has his way with this victim. Then come to find out it's his mother, and then he commits suicide. Like he jumps off the building. But like Immortal Technique was just like, graphically describing, just the violence of the hood or whatever. But also the initiation process that might actually, like, I don't know if it involves that kind of stuff. I hope it doesn't.
Things like, robbing.
Yeah, it might be robbing, killing. That is awful. That's awful. But that's really like.
Well, but to show that, I mean, at that point, everyone has something to lose. That's
exactly. You've done a crime. Like you've done something. You can't go snitching back to the police.
You can't say anything about nobody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Greek organizations and
The fraternities. Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Yeah.
They have initiation procedures to have that leverage over you.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's not forget about the fact that listening to this premise, you would assume that if you were a part of the combatant army or military, you would not want these people integrated into your military because they could infiltrate your government. But they took over 50 Nazis after they defeated Hitler.
Oh yeah.
Into the United States.
Well, because they were good scientists. That's the thing.
Let's keep it real. Where did the Nazis learn from?
Facts.
You mean they left from America? You said?
Yeah, so that was easy for them to notice.
Oh, they're like, oh, you also believe in the racial superiority? You also believe in the racial superiority? No.
They studied the eugenics programs here and learned from the Americans and improved upon them because that's what they're good at.
Yeah, but that's the thing I want to say though. But see, this is actually really critical too. The reality is this: that to be called a Pan-African Nationalist, you don't got to do nothing. You don't got to prove nothing. Nobody. You can like you could be a black nationalist and you could work for Wazungu, you could sleep with Wazungu, you could, like this guy Fanon is sleeping with Wazungu. You know what I'm saying? Like you can be, and that's the difference.
You don't understand
And
it's the libido and the erotic pleasures of volcanic eruptions that cause the desire to be with bosom.
oh yeah, that's true. That's true. You're right. You're right. He did explain that. Anyway, all right. Let's see. Everyone was therefore personally responsible for the death of the victim. To work means to work. Blah blah blah. Claiming responsibility for the violence has always allowed these members of the group who have strayed and who have been outlawed to come back to retake their place and be reintegrated. Violence can thus be understood to be the perfect mediation. The colonized man liberates himself in and through violence. The praxis enlightens the militant because it shows him the means to an end. Césaire's poetry takes on a prophetic significance in this very prospect of violence. Let us recall one of the most decisive pages of his tragedy, where the rebel, what a coincidence, proclaims, "My family name offended, my given name humiliated, my profession rebel, my age the Stone Age." His mother says, "My race, the human race, my religion, brotherhood." And rebel says, "My race, the fallen race, my religion. But it is not you who will prepare it." Oh, he doesn't say. But it is not you who will prepare it with your disarmament. It is I with my revolt and my poor clenched fist with my bushy head. Very calmly. Okay. So actually, I was thinking I haven't read Césaire's poetry yet. I kind of want to read this one. That seems pretty interesting.
Who's that?
Aimé Césaire, he's the founder of Negritude, you know? So Negritude was this big, you said what?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. Yeah, it's this big movement, but it's more of the Francophone, and he was like one of the leaders of this sort of belief system that was promulgating, you know, black, like pro-black sentiments throughout the Francophone and more or less the African world, you know? So,
Right.
yeah, so he's like Africans. Africa's like Langston Hughes, but without the coonery and the and the mulattoism, if you will. You know, he's but like I never really got into his writing because, you know, I don't read French, obviously. Well, neither that either, but I never really got into Aimé Césaire's writing.
What you call it, Harlem Renaissance.
Yeah, exactly. The Harlem Renaissance, you know, instills this pro-black attitude, but this one was more decolonialism and you know, anti-France, I guess, or whatever, but like racial pride. So right here you can kind of see he's like, my family name was offended, you know, my given name was humiliated, you know, my profession, they call me a rebel, and my age is the Stone Age. Now maybe he's saying that they call him primitive or whatever, and so his mother,
that's a nice play on words.
yeah, his mother is, you know, like what you were saying, you know, well, my race is the human race, you know, like we're all humans, and my religion is brotherhood. I know, but you know, but like even though you're trolling, like that's a real response from real people. Real people say this. Like his mother, this is Aimé Césaire, like his fake mother. It's not a real mother, but he's saying, you know, the rebel's mother is like, oh no, let's all be about human race. Let's all be about brotherhood, you know, for our religion. Because that's what a lot of the religions are about. They're about brotherhood, right? And so, you know, on top of colonization, but, you know, brotherhood too, right? And so the rebel is saying, no, my race is the fallen race. I'm not about humans. I'm about those who were offended and victimized. And then, of course, he says something about his religion, but we can't tell because Fanon cut it out, so I wouldn't mind reading it. All right. So he says, I recall a November day, he was not 6 months old, and the master came into the shark. Oh, this is probably still the book. Interesting. So he says, yeah, okay, this is still the book. So he says, I recall a November day, he was not 6 months old, and the master came into a shack murky as an April moon, and he was probing the child's small muscled limbs. He was a very good master. He ran his fat fingers caressing across his little dimpled face. His blue eyes were laughing. Oh, sorry. This page has jumped. His blue eyes were laughing, so I'm guessing the master's blue eyes. I'm guessing it's a small black boy, or maybe not. I can't tell. But his blue eyes were laughing, and his mouth was teasing him with sugary things. This one will make a good one, the master said, looking at me, and he was saying other friendly things. The master, that you had to start very early, that 20 years were not too much to make a good Christian and a good slave, a good subject, utterly devoted, a good slave driver for an overseer with a sharp eye and strong arm. And this man was speculating over my son's cradle, a slave driver's cradle. So he's saying, I'm guessing from here that this overseer is...
They get them when they're young.
Exactly. Getting like a black kid at 6 months. He's so the rebel's son, so this mother's grandson, was being at 6 months was being told by the overseer that his son, right, is going to make a good Christian and a good slave and a good subject. So the mother then tells him, alas, he'll die. He says, killed. I killed him with my own hand. Yes, a fecund and copious death. It was night. We crawled through the sugarcane. The cutlasses were shortling at the stars, but we didn't care about the stars. The cane slashed our face with streams of green blades. I had dreamed of a son who could close his mother's eyes. His mother says, I dreamed of a son who closed his mother's eyes, so to say that you would outlive me. And he says, I chose to open my child's eyes to another son. So it looks like he killed his own son. I don't know.
It's a little strange.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the rebel says, I chose to open my child's eyes to another son. Mother says, oh, my son, an evil and pernicious death. Mother, a verdant and sumptuous death. From too much hate. And the rebel says, from too much love, as I say, you have too much love. And she says, spare me, I'm choking from your shackles, bleeding from your wounds. And the rebel says, and the world does not spare me. There is not in the world one single poor lynched bastard, one poor tortured man in whom I am not also murdered and humiliated. So obviously, he relates with, like you see a lynching and you relate with that individual. You see a tortured person and you relate with that individual. Mother says, God in heaven, deliver him. You said what?
I was just going to say that, there are several instances of African women that were enslaved in the Americas that killed their children.
Yeah, for sure.
And they, because it was a release from the toil and burden. And there were times where the owners would sit there and say that they will punish them for having more children because it became too burdensome on the plantation or on the workplace that they had. So a lot of that mythology of women don't belong in the workplace, blah, 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 barefoot and pregnant, don't hire a woman because once she has a baby, a lot of that ideology bubbles up from enslaved times in America.
Yeah.
And they went to, and they were prosecuted for destruction of property oftentimes because the child was the property of her owner employer person, and so she went to jail or was punished for destruction of property.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's the thing. White people looked at Africans as property, like just the same way that Africans look at. I mean, Americans look at pets as property.
I'm a dog mom. I'm a dog dad.
Yeah, exactly. Dogs and cats and so on and so forth. Now, the only difference is that you don't have any laws on the book for dogs and cats. Although, if a dog does something stupid, you do kill that dog. Like if a dog bites a human or something, or is frothing from the mouth.
Put down a lot.
You said what? You put down a lot? Yeah.
Bulls.
But like tigers and bears as well, or whatever. But the point is that
Who gives a pet bear?
white people. like you know what I'm saying? I don't know anybody black who does it, but they're all white people who keep pet bears anyway. But I'm talking about like zoos though, or like what happened with Harambe. Harambe was killed with I don't know why that's funny, but
No. I remember how they killed Harambe. They were just trying to protect the kid.
yeah, I think she grabbed the kid or something. It was actually a black kid, right? I think it was a black kid too. Like jumped into the.
Get down there. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, he went into the thing, and then Harambe was like, "Oh, you cool? We chilling," and then they killed Harambe.
What's up, cuz? Why you shooting at me, dog?
Yeah, right. Like what? Wait, they shooting at us. Stand behind me. They're like a good ass gorilla. Anyway, all right. So anyway, the mother says, "God in heaven, deliver him." And the rebel says, "My heart, you will not deliver me of my memories." It was a November night, and suddenly clamors lit up the silence. We had leapt, we the slaves, we the manure, we beasts with patient hooves. Actually, let me just read these comments for a second. So Kofi says, Du Bois is a sellout, and EL says 100. So I forgot to read them.
When he shared his ways towards this time of his life.
Who? Fanon?
He repatriated to Ghana.
Who's Cesare?
I'm talking the boys. The boys, bro. The boys.
Nah, Du Bois is a mess, man. Du Bois is a freaking mess.
I know, but
He ain't changed. He
reconsidered.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like you could do so much bad, and then reconsider. But you
And then you like, my bad.
Yeah, like that ain't cool, man. Like I ain't giving you props there. Like what was it? Apparently when he was younger, he was in his he's older. He was in his Ghanaian mansion or whatever, and these kids, came and hang around because it's like he's a living intellectual, so they want to hang around or whatever.
Yeah.
And so.
They wanted some, wisdom.
Yeah, it's Du Bois. Like, it ain't like, what I'm saying? Garvey was dead. Booker was dead. Everybody was dead except for this guy, right? So anyway, he's like 90 something or something. I don't know. But point is that he's hanging out, whatever, and then these two kids start arguing with each other, and one of them says, "Man, you sounding like Booker T. Washington," blah blah. And then Du Bois, who's like sitting in a stupor or whatever, just kind of wakes up and says, "No, don't say that. Don't say that. And he was reminded of something that his aunt told him. And his aunt told him when he was younger, right? Because he was trash talking Booker T. Washington. And no, his aunt said, don't talk about somebody like that because don't talk about that man like that because you never bore the whip, Because the thing with Booker T. Washington was that he was enslaved. Like he grew up on a plantation, Yeah, exactly. He grew up on a plantation, so a lot of what he was talking about was like economic independence for black people in order to avoid us being on a plantation. Whereas, Du Bois was kind of talking, oh no, let's just go to these skills, blah blah. Why can't we get these skills? Like, why can't we, learn this? Yeah, exactly. Like, why? But also, like, he was more so agitating for black people to
integration.
Well, not just integration, but it was more so to get higher education. Like good jobs. And so Du Bois was like, yes, you do want to be able to write papers and all that kind of stuff and, university jobs and positions, but you have to be able to feed yourselves as well. You have to have the basic labor as well. And so Du Bois was more heavily focused on the higher, the higher learning and Booker T. Washington was like, let's actually build an economy. Yeah, build an economy, sort of saying, because you can't run an economy strictly on poets or whatever, right? So when he gets older, he's like, oh, don't say that about, but his aunt was really saying something powerful that he was ignoring, which was that, when you are whipped, yeah, like when you're whipped, yeah, exactly. When you're whipped, you have a different perspective, just like in the hood, like, we could say, hey, don't shoot your neighbor, and that's easy, right? But if you're trying, and I mean, it's easy, obviously, but if you're trying to sell drugs in a community for whatever reason, because you can't sell anything else, like it's the only thing that you can sell for some reason. Because what else are you gonna sell? You're gonna sell what are you gonna sell? Yeah, well, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Like, you can't sell life insurance. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you said what?
That they're not gonna pay the claim on, like they did so many times. Like life insurance was one of the original scams that ran throughout the.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like unless like if you're selling, but then now somebody else moves into your area, somebody else undercuts you. What do? Like you can't just ask them, oh yeah, well, I mean, this is my area, and I would like to trade, because they're also as desperate to get these drugs onto the people, because that's what the people are looking to buy.
Like to barter with you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sure. Can you sell hair products? Yes, but if you look at how, like I'll tell you, like, straight up. One time I went out there and I'm like trying to sell books by hand, like my books, right? That's not working. Yeah, that don't work as good as this other dude coming to me. He was like a gangbanger, I guess. Yeah, he was selling marijuana. So every time I go to somebody and I'm trying to like get them to buy a book, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash," But then this dude shows me $1,000 of cash from buying marijuana. You understand? Yeah, he and it's from a day, But he's showing me that if he just walks around in the community and they, the people are looking to buy drugs off of him. Now, do I condone, people buying drugs? No. Do I condone people using drugs? No. But the reality is that if you look at the American, whether they're in the underclass or whether they're in the overclass, a lot of them are druggies. Whether it be alcohol, which is obviously everybody does that, right? Or a lot of them do that. But no, I'm not saying everybody, but what I mean is that, like a lot of people, particularly like it's normalized for men to go drink beer, women to drink wine. Yeah, drink wine, drink beer, like that's a daily thing. It's the same with a lot of people are also, it's a little more down low, but a lot of people are, either eating an edible or smoking a spliff. Yeah. But then somebody is selling it. Now, if they're not being sold in regular stores, somebody can make some good money selling it. You understand? And that's what black people find an opportunity in. Are they going to be able to sell televisions and get $1,000 a day? Probably not. Because you might be able to sell one television. Yeah, nobody really buying because you don't have the storage. You don't. So that's what it is. Yeah, if you, I mean, like exactly. You see what I'm saying? Like the one thing that don't last are the consumables, the consumable goods. Now, and like a lot of them are the only ones that are illegal are the ones that you could probably sell on the streets. You know what I mean? Because if you were like, hey, you know what? Why don't you guys sell water? Cause that store is. You know what I'm saying? Because if you want water, you can just get it from that store.
Like, bro, what is it?
You know what I'm saying? But like,
why would I pay $5 for this one bottle? I can pay $5 for a whole case.
Exactly. And then it's like the same with like, why don't you guys sell alcohol? Because that store does. But then it's like, well, what can you sell? Well, I can sell marijuana. Because who else? Because where else are you gonna get it? Now you can probably get it, from a store. I don't know, but like, yeah, like it's easy. But that's what I'm saying. It's easy to critique other people if you have not bear the whip. And then the whip in this case is that if you don't have that desperate poverty, it's easy to critique of people for that sort of stuff. Because what happened was that during Prohibition, right, a lot of the gangs that were created in America among the Italian company, the Italian were related to the illegal sale of alcohol. You see? Exactly. The Mother and Father Italian Association. Yeah. No, it's called the Mafia's Mother and Father Italian Association, right? No, I'm joking. I think that's a joke that the Italians say. I don't know. But anyway, I think I heard some Italian guys say that. Huh?
Forget about it.
Oh gosh, dude, that was. Like I thought you was having a seizure. I was like, oh no. All right, but anyway, but yeah. Like that's what happens if you are fighting over a profitable, lucrative black market. They call it black market, whatever. That's what happens, and you can't judge them because like somebody's gonna do it. We were running because I remember the reason why I bring up this marijuana thing is because like I said, I was out there trying to sell books or whatever, and this one sister was just like walking. It's like an elder, like he was giving her elders props, but she's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go. I'm like, she's like how long are you gonna be here? I'll be right back. I just gotta go buy some marijuana down that way. And I'm like, what? Okay, like all right, I guess but that's what it is. Like this is the community. This is the people.
That's wild.
It's not just them though. Like it's not just the, like I said, like white people apparently.
Because we're not concerned about white people. That's the thing. That's why we don't talk about it.
I'm just saying it's an American thing, man. It's an American thing. It's like you in America. That's what they do. It's like watching TV. You know what I mean? Like or watching American Idol. Like everybody did it. You know what I mean? Or like most people did it. Shit. I voted for. I voted for whomever won. No, I'm joking. Zach, all right. Dial 3 for you're like, yes, come on, dude, win it. All right. And then yeah, okay. We sorry. So anyway, so yeah, that was Du Bois and all that. So let me see if anybody commented on that. He changed for clout. Kofi says he changed for clout. I'm guessing he means Du Bois. Yeah, Du Bois was a mess. My heart, you will not deliver me to my memories. It was November night. My suddenly clamors lit up the silence. We had leapt, we the slaves, we the manure, we beasts with patient hose. We were running like lunatics. Fiery shots broke out. I know, it's just like it's good literature for the time. You know what I mean? We were because people are reading this stuff and they're just like, they're so put down that they identify with it. Exactly, they identify. They're like, it's like you wanna, like kind of like in America where you like, yeah, I'm a thug. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't call you like, Like today, you wouldn't be like, okay, thug, why would you call it? But like back then, it's like, yeah, you call me a thug, sure, I'm a thug. You call me a slave, yeah, I'm a slave. You call me a beast, yeah, I'm a beast with patient hooves. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. All right, we were, like we the N-word. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we do. All right, we were running like lunatics. Fiery shots broke out. We were striking. Sweat and blood cooled us off. We were striking amidst the screams, and the screams became more strident, and great clamor rose toward the east. The outbuildings were burning, and the flames sweetly splashed our cheeks. Then came the attack on the master's house. We were shooting. Okay, so I think he says he's killed the master instead of his kid. Maybe that's better, obviously. Then came Then came the attack on the master's house. They were shooting from the windows. We forced the doors. The master's bedroom was wide open.
Freeman?
Yo, you and the Bulldogs, man. Yo, let that show die, man. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, nah.
Remember when they planned the upheaval and everything, uprising?
Yeah. Well, the master's bedroom was wide open. The master's bedroom was brilliantly lit, and the master was there, very calm, and all of us stopped. He was the master. I entered. "It's you," he said, very calmly. It was me. It was indeed me. I told him, the good slave, the faithful slave, the slave. And suddenly my eyes were two cockroaches frightened on a rainy day. I struck. The blood spurted. It is the only baptism that today I remember. So he's talking about how he murdered the master who showed up and was appraising his son and saying his son would be a good slave and a good Christian just like him. And so he eventually one day they break in, and even though he behaved good, Spook, who sat by the door, he struck his thing. So, and this was of course the dogs were silent. That's why Amy is there. All right. So it's understandable how in such a atmosphere, everyday life becomes impossible. Being a fellow, a pimp, or an alcoholic is no longer an option. The violence of the colonial regime and the counter-violence of the colonized balance each other and respond to each other in an extraordinary reciprocal homogeneity. The greater the number of metropolitan settlers, the more terrible the violence will be. Violence among the colonized will spread in proportion to the violence exerted by the colonial regime. In the initial phase of the insurrectional period, the metropolitan governments are slaves of the colonists. These colonists are a threat to both the colonized and their own governments. They will use the same methods indiscriminately. The assassination of the mayor of Evian can be likened to the assassination of Ali Boumendjeh in its method and motivation. For the colonists, the alternative is not between an Algeria and a French Algeria, but between an independent Algeria and a colonial Algeria. Anything else is hot air or an act of treason. The colonist logic is unrelenting, and one is only baffled by the counter logic of the colonized behavior if one has remained out of touch with the colonist's way of thinking. Once the colonized have opted for counter violence, police reprisals automatically call for reprisals by the nationalist forces. The outcome, however, is profoundly unequal, for machine gunning by planes or bombardments from naval vessels outweigh in horror and scope the response from the colonized. The most alienated of the colonized are once and for all demystified by this pendulum motion of terror and counter-terror. They see for themselves that any number of speeches on human equality cannot mask the absurdity whereby 7 Frenchmen killed or wounded in an ambush at the Sakamodi Pass sparks the indignation of civilized consciences, whereas the sacking of the Gongor Douer and Gerera Dekra and the massacre of the population behind the ambush count for nothing. Terror, counter-terror, violence, counter-violence. This is what observers bitterly report when describing the circle of hatred, which is so manifest and so tenacious in Algeria. This reminds me, this is something that really happens, So in the Swahili coast, I believe, right? Oh, no, you're not the Swahili. I think it was the Swahili coast or maybe the Herero of Germany. It might be the Herero of Germany. I think one German was killed. Like one German missionary was killed, probably for fooling around with a woman or something. But one German, they slaughtered the whole Herero people. Like 90% or something like that. That's what we're up against. And this is what might have happened also on the Swahili coast. But this is something that continually happens where the Wazungu says, hey, 7 of us died. Okay, this is what's going to happen. You have these, and you have to understand that these colonists are not playing. They have these big naval ships. They're going to use them. They have these nuclear airships. They're going to use them. What they did in Vietnam, for instance, with the I think it's called C4, right? Maybe C4 or C9, one of the two. But they use this. They use this napalm. They burned up. How many human lives were lost? If you actually do the toll of how many people died in Vietnam versus how many Vietnamese died in that war, it's an astronomical number. Let me see actually. Because I mean the Americans died too, but obviously you're in.
Not to the magnitude of.
And not only that, but you're in Vietnam. You're in their country.
I mean, you could do the same thing with Iraq and everything.
Exactly. You know, Vietnamese war casualties, 882,000 dead. Yeah. A lot of them. Yeah. From the war. That's that. You know, and this is in the course of 20 years. You know, so they're fighting these people for 20 years, and millions are dying. You know, if you count the various forces, civilian deaths 667,000, military deaths 444,000, U.S. deaths for that is 282,000, and of course countless injuries, and all for what? But this is what the Westerner does. They have these murder machines and they use them. You know, and there are vicious people that you have to combat. You know, there was this one video, one point I was watching TV, and like one of those Discovery Channel things, and there was this like you see the visual of they're saying here's the most dangerous substance on the earth. You know, scientists accidentally found this substance that can kill human beings. You know, kill a human being pretty instantly. And so you're like, wow, they found something that's really dangerous and it can kill people.
On a cracker.
You said it's not a cracker. like you're like, okay, so what happened? What happens next is this. They say, so what the scientists have done was they manufactured enough of these vials in order to kill the entire human population, and then they keep this in this vault over here. Why would you? Why would you manufacture enough to kill everybody on the planet?
What purpose is that for?
That don't even make no damn sense. It's like you find something like you know, me and you know, you find something incredibly dangerous. You say, wow, we gotta avoid this. You know, like wow, let's not repeat this experiment. You know, like this is not something that's right. White folks say, oh, this could kill everybody. No, this could kill somebody. This could kill one person. Oh, that's interesting. What if we made enough to kill the entire human population? Like that don't even make any sense. Like it doesn't, and that's the excess. You know, that's using excess resources, but that's also just stupid. But that's who you're dealing with. You're dealing with the people who, push comes to shove, not just that, but push comes to shove, will try to kill your entire population.
Yeah.
You understand?
In themselves in the process.
Well, yeah. Well, just to front, yeah, just to you know, whatever. In the arms.
A wise elder said to me that if they cannot run and control it or own it, they will destroy it.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. That's a common trope. That's a common. In fact, that's what happens. Like I said, I sometimes watch this Star Trek thing. I saw that in yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to watch it, whatever. But like even I rewatched this Infinity Wars or something like that, or Avengers.
That's Marvel, though.
Yeah, I saw this Marvel Avengers. At the end, there's this guy named Thanos. He does this thing where he kills half the people. The people are still indignant and rebellious. So he says, you know what? I should kill everybody off, and then try again. You know, that's what the mentality.
Like, you killed my husband. You're like, who is you?
Wait, what you say?
Like, I remember you.
Oh, some guy, yeah. Some guy was like, yeah. Like what? Which one are you? Yeah, but anyway, let's go. In the armed struggle, there is what we should call the point of no return. It is always attributable to the sweeping repression which encompasses every sector of the colonized population. The point was reached in Algeria in 1955 with the 12,000 victims of Felipe, and in 1950, 12,000, look at that, 12,000 victims of Felipe. And in 1956 by Lacosse's creation of rural and urban militias. It then becomes evident for everyone, and even for the colonists, that things cannot go on as they are. And anyway, but let me just read this. This is the footnote. In order to gauge the importance of this decision by the French government in Algeria, we need to return to the period in issue number 4 of Resistance Algérienne, dated March 28, 1957. We read, in response to the wishes of the United States General Assembly, the French government has recently decided to create urban militias. Enough bloodshed, said the UN. Let us form militias, replies Lacoste. Ceasefire, advised the UN. Let us arm the civilians, screams Lacoste. The two parties involved are requested to make initial contacts in order to agree on a democratic and peaceful solution. The UN recommended Lacoste's decree that henceforth every European shall be armed and should fire on anybody appearing suspect. The savage, iniquitous repression bordering on genocide must above all things be combated by the authorities, was then the general opinion. So every European in in Algeria was deputized. And we saw the same thing. When people talk about, well, back in the day, they used to be like, women don't have guns and blah, blah, blah. Or like you see a woman with a gun, you're like, wow, she has a gun. So heroic. But then if you look at images of Israel, or you look at images of South Africa, the white women there were armed to the teeth. The savage. You said what?
It's all sight when they see.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what he says. He says, shall be armed and should fire on anybody appearing suspect. You just got to think somebody's suspect, and then you would kill an Algerian. And this was like one of the tipping points in Algeria, obviously. The savage, iniquitous repression bordering on genocide must, above all things, be combated by the authorities, was then the general opinion. Lacoste retorts, let us systemize the repression. Let us organize a manhood of Algerians. And symbolically, he hands over civilian power to the military and military power to the civilians. The circle is sealed. In the middle of the Algerian, disarmed, starved, hounded, jostled, struck, lynched, and soon to be shot because he is a suspect. Today in Algeria, there is not a single Frenchman who is not authorized or welcome to make use of his arms. Not a single Frenchman in Algeria, 1 month after the UN's appeal for calm, who does not have permission of the obligation to unearth, fabricate, and hunt down suspects. 1 month after the UN General Assembly resolution, there is not a single European in Algeria who is not part of the most appalling act of extermination in modern times. Democratic solution? Okay, concedes Lacoste. Let's start by eliminating the Algerians. In order to do so, let's arm the civilians and let them do the job. The majority of the Parisian press cautiously reported the creation of these armed gangs. Fascist militias, they said. And remember, we see this inside of South Africa today, where the Indians are just walking around killing black folk, right? Yes, but at the...
Community.
You said what?
The diplomatic immunity.
Exactly. Yes, but at the level of this individual and human rights, what is fascism but colonialism at the very heart of traditionally colonialist countries, systematically authorized and condone assassinations they suggested. But for 130 years, hasn't Algerian flesh borne the marks of ever gaping, ever growing, ever deeper wounds? We should be careful, advises Monsieur Kenneth Vignes, parliamentary member of the MRP party, not to widen the abyss between the two communities in Algeria by creating these militias. Yes, but isn't the colonial status the organized enslavement of an entire people? The Algerian Revolution is precisely the living challenge to the enslavement and this abyss. The Algerian Revolution addresses the occupying nation as follows. Remove your fangs from Algeria's bruised and wounded flesh. Let the Algerian people speak. The creation of these militias, they say, will alleviate the army. They will free units whose mission is to protect the borders with Tunisia and Morocco. Yeah, okay. And that's pretty much it. That's up to page. I mean, I kind of read the whole of page 48. Wasn't supposed to, but that's what it is. So that's that chapter. I think it was pretty interesting. We did kind of tangent a lot this time, but it is what it is. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, the book. I mean, the book is pretty good. Like I said, if people want to just read the book, you could just read the book. It's available at your bookstore. No, I'm telling people, like, if you prefer, whatever. But this is a good way to, illustrate the point. And also, I want people to understand that. You said what?
Get some consensus.
Yeah, I want people to understand that there's like even when you're reading a book, you have to be critical of the author as well. You have to recognize when the author is saying things that if you just take it to heart, you might end up being a little bit confused for it too. Like, particularly that moment where he's saying that the industrial powers could have just, and like raised up the standard of living for the colonized countries. And it's like, yeah, but you're not understanding why industrial nations don't do that.
What's the benefit for that?
Exactly. Like, why would you, like, if you can get coltan for $10 a pound, right? Why do you develop the Congo? if the Congo is developed, you can probably get that coltan for $10,000. Exactly. Exactly. You why would you develop it so that you get the coltan for $10,000 a pound? That doesn't make any sense. You know, if you can get it for $10 a pound, then get it for $10 a pound. I mean, I'm not saying you should, but I understand why you would. You know.
That's why we need communism, bro.
Yeah, I guess. Right. Shout out to Karl Marx. Right. Anyway, I'm just messing. Ah, dang. I hope that's not a. I hope nobody tags that. But like, yo, here goes Oni. Here goes Oni saying, "Shout out to Karl Marx." I told you. Exactly. Right. Frothing from the mouth. Socialist. Let's. All right. Anyway, but all right, family. Thank you so much. You said what? Exactly. Right. But yeah, shout out, family. Thanks, family, for joining. And hopefully I'll talk to you tomorrow. This has been 4 days in a row. We're going for 5. And then, of course, we're going to take a weekend break. But, you know, eventually you could also check me out on Saturday or whatever. Or Sunday. All right, then, fam. Thanks so much. Shem Yem Hotep.
And assalamu alaikum to you too.
This dude and his assalamu alaikum.